We help busy over 40s get in shape in 30 days with only 30 minutes of kettlebell training per week. Grab your free ebook to find out how we do this. Type yes in the comments or check the link in our bio or description.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have another episode of the Powerful Kettle Nights podcast. And I have with me my main man. You probably know him under this handle, Ericdoeskettlebell. He's an online coach, and I think many of you are familiar with him. He has a pretty decent social media following. And I think we got connected a couple of months ago. And we had a back and forth. I invited him like twice. This is the third time now. So the first two times I had to postpone it. I think at one time I was even on vacation. I didn't even realize it. And I was like, man, this guy must be thinking, man, you're always postponing this conversation. And then I bumped it back up. I said, Eric, come on, let's make it happen. And now we finally make it happen. So I'm really proud to have him on. And of course, we're going to talk about all things kettlebell. So Eric, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Gregory. I appreciate it. I don't know. Maybe you're just trying to play hard to get or something like that.
Yes.
You're like, does this guy really want to talk to me? We'll see. Maybe third time's the charm.
Let's see. Exactly. Let's see if he wants to follow up and if he shows some skin. Yeah. Awesome. So Eric, you know, as we always do with everybody who appears on a podcast, is we want to know your story. How did you get started with not only just kettlebells, but your fitness journey in general? And we mentioned when we got started that you're now transitioning or you're already working as an online coach. So give us your background. We have the time. Let's go.
Okay. I'll start with general fitness. I was always into fitness, I think in sophomore year of high school, which is 10th grade. I know you have an international community, so the American school system may not be familiar with everyone. But in high school, so I was always that kid who was relatively small to my peers, you know, compared to my friends and people at school. And so all guys, you know, in high school, they want to sort of, maybe not all guys, but I wanted to get bigger and I wanted to get stronger and more masculine. You know, you're going through puberty, you're comparing yourself to all of your peers at school. And so I started off just in the gym, just doing like traditional bodybuilding, weightlifting stuff. This was, you know, pre-social media, luckily, so I wasn't one of those broccoli-haired fitness kids posting on TikTok or anything like that. Which is ironic because now I post my exercise videos on Instagram. But anyway, I was really into just like the general bodybuilding stuff. I didn't know what I was doing. I have an older brother, and he taught me a little, but he was also learning at the time too. I never had any formal gym training at all. The biggest thing was just like wanting to feel the pump, you know. So that was like my first foray into fitness. And I did sports growing up. You know, soccer was my main one. I did baseball. I'm a, you know, coordinated guy, and so I just, you know, did sports. I never really got into them or anything like that. But anyway, transitioning later on, I joined the military. I was in the Marine Corps, and so just given that you're constantly surrounded by fit freaks, and of course it's necessary to stay fit while you're in the military, at least in the Marines. Just kidding. Some people will get that joke. But I never touched kettlebells until 2020, like many people.
Pandemic. All right.
Yes, with the pandemic, with COVID.
Yeah.
I was living in DC, Washington DC at the time. And, you know, geographically across the U.S., different states and different cities have different regulations, right? So DC being a major city, more liberal in nature politically. And so as a result of that, a lot of gyms closed down, including 2 or 3 that I frequented one, which closed down, but then like all the other ones near me, they closed down as well. So I was like, all right, I got to figure this out. I got to figure out a way to stay fit. And I always knew about kettlebells. I'm not embarrassed to say that they always intimidated me. I always thought that I would break my back doing them because just the snatch, it looked like way too scary to me. And so before I actually got my first kettlebell, I went on Amazon and I tried to find one, and they were all sold out. As I'm sure you're like during this time.
Yeah, everybody jumped on it. It's like hive mind thinking. I don't know what happened,
But it
man.
was
It's
good
just,
for you. I wanted to get to you in a sec. Because
yeah,
you
yeah.
were
Took
posting
off.
then. You were already, familiar
Yeah,
with it. I'll get to that in a sec.
yeah.
But because they were all sold out, the first thing I got was this 25-pound slam ball. And it didn't, I was just that crazy guy in the front of my apartment building, like throwing this tiny ball up
Bam.
there. I was like, I did two things. I threw it up as high as I could, and then I threw it down as fast as I could too. And my neighbors were looking at me like, what the hell is this guy doing? But I needed to do something.
Yeah.
I needed that pump. Um, and then I was like, this isn't doing anything for me, so I'm just gonna try something else. And then finally I got a kettlebell. It was like a 35-pound kettlebell from Walmart. Oh no, it was actually on Amazon. It was some like rinky dink, one of those like two cast ones that they put together. Then like
Yeah.
the seam is just like was so bad. Like the seam, they were like two halves of the kettlebell. One was higher up here, one was lower.
But at least it was a kettlebell, right? You got started with it.
It was,
Yeah.
at least it was a kettlebell. My hands
Yeah.
were destroyed more than
Of course.
normal. Yeah, you know the drill.
Yeah, we,
But anyway,
we all know it. Yeah.
I didn't know what the hell I was doing, so of course I went to YouTube, and you and Mark Wildman were just like my online gurus for
Man, awesome.
forever. And your voice would just, emulate through my apartment building for months. And so, my fiance, she knows who you are, even though she's not into kettlebells at all. So this
awesome.
experience is surreal for me.
Awesome, man.
And so that was my first introduction to kettlebells.
Yeah.
Ironically, I never actually hired an in-person coach. I really just try to utilize what I could on the internet. I would, every time I get into something as a hobby or a job, I just immerse myself as much as I can. And there's a point at which I, figure out like, am I into this? Because if I am, I'm going to commit. And kettlebells were that thing for me. So I would just spend like, hours out of my day just consuming kettlebell content, getting used to how people look when they do it, and I would try to emulate them. And so after a year of working out with bells, I started recording myself. I was like, this online community really helped me figure out this new tool, and it changed my life. At this point, the gyms were still closed down.
Yeah.
So I was doing kettlebell full time for a year, and I was like, this thing works. I will say I lost, like, my physique was less impressive than when I was at the gym, right? Because kettlebells aren't intended for bodybuilding.
Here's it. Let me just jump in real quick. It's something that people don't want to hear is, but are you going to lose muscle when you start using kettlebells? And I always say, if you start using kettlebells, let's say the way they are built to be used, with momentum and with explosiveness, and where you work, where especially the eccentric phase is missing most of the time, especially when you jump into the ballistics. Of course, you can do the grinds. Nobody wants to, I'm not saying anything against them. But if you miss out on the eccentric phase, you are missing out on one of the most important parts of building muscle the way we are used to in the gym. So I myself lost some muscle when I got started with kettlebells. And it doesn't mean that you cannot build muscle with the kettlebell, but if you jump into the ballistics, and if you don't want to go heavy all the time, and you use let's say, like I always call them evergreen weight. So if you're really good at it, that's like 24, 28 something.
Mm-hmm.
Then, and you're snatching, swinging, cleaning, then your physique is going to change. And that's why I believe if you still want to have this, let's say, like a little bit more of a muscular type of physique, don't quit the barbell, don't quit machines, and use the kettlebell the way it's intended to be used. But it's definitely going to change your body. It was, in my case, happened to me as well.
Yeah. No, I remember, I think I saw a video of you comparing, because you did like general bodybuilding sort of stuff too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Was definitely into it, like everybody.
So I think it's important for people to be aware of that before they get into kettlebells, so that they don't get the wrong impression. And I think the way that I look at kettlebells is it's just a tool, because it really is, at the end of the day, it's just like a piece of metal. How you wield it,
Exactly.
how
Exactly.
you look. So
And
But
you could also, and here's the thing, you could also use it for bodybuilding, right? You could.
you
But
could. I think it's less efficient.
that's it. And it's a weight at the end of the day. But look at the pros. They don't use it. Why don't they use it? Because they use other tools who give them more ROI
Yeah.
for their a specific goal that they have.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. Don't get the wrong impression. It's still a weight, yes, but if you use it, what is? I always say, why are you getting a kettlebell if you don't want to use it for the ballistic manners and or the ballistic exercises and the momentum, because it's a bell, right? So that's you're swinging it. If you just want to use it for bodybuilding, you can, but it's not, like you said, maybe not the most effective or not the most efficient tool.
Some people, though, I think, given their circumstances, they should use it for that if that's their intent.
Good point.
You know,
Good point.
People who live in rural areas, or maybe they're facing some like financial difficulties and they don't want to pay, X number of dollars per month to go to the gym. They can use the kettlebells for that, but they have to know that they have to change up their training regimen. So
Yes.
it's all circumstantial. But at the end of the day, I think the kettlebell is one of the most holistic tools for fitness out there, because it really is like, I don't know if you said it first or so. I know you've repeated this quote, but it's like the Swiss Army knife of the
Yes.
fitness tools. And
Yes.
I believe that.
It is. It touches all bases. Of human
Yeah.
movement qualities.
As long as you're doing it correctly, though.
Yes, yes, yes. And maybe you are. I always say that the clients are just online, especially because our clients, they don't care about that. I always say 99% of people who are not in fitness, especially the people who are above 40, who just need something to move and they want to get in shape, they want to get rid of that back pain, they want to get all these beautiful benefits that regular exercise can provide you with. They don't care about looking jacked or looking like the Instagram guys or the gals. It's just funny thing is when you look at from a 10,000 foot perspective, it's just this small little space where we find ourselves in, where you always think that everybody wants to be jacked. While at the end of the day, that's just not the reality. But aside from that, you might lose some muscle, but you will gain in other areas.
Yeah.
The mobility, the endurance. You build one of the most important muscles, and that's your heart, right? So it's yeah.
I'm gonna take notes. I brought a notebook so that I could, because every time you say something, I'm like, oh, I have to comment on that.
Yeah.
And one of those things that you said, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of these people who are jacked, they are facing, issues physically that you just don't see, because why would they post about that? And so if you do want to get rid of that lower back strength and some other ailments that maybe your body's hurting in such and such a way, you're not really going to fix that doing machines at the gym and just, optimizing, that ROI from muscle building. And the good thing about the kettlebell is because it is so holistic, it forces you to really work your core. My lower back, I didn't even realize I was neglecting it so much prior to picking up a bell. And I was like, what the hell is this? I'm getting a lower back pump right now. So,
Yes, lower back
and
pump.
those benefits are not physical. And because of that, I think, psychologically, humans have a hard time understanding that benefit if they don't see it.
Yeah.
They have to feel it to really understand.
Especially if it's in the back. I don't know who said it. Somebody quoted this. He said, you always focus on your front, the chest, the abs, the
because
biceps.
the mirror is right there.
Because that you see that. But and you don't see what's going on behind. That's why you don't focus on it that much. Right?
You know
So
what's crazy? Sorry, yeah. Continue.
keep going.
The when I started recording myself for Instagram, for when I was taking these videos, you realize, I set up the tripod and then I walk in front of the camera to go to my bell, and I'm like, I've never seen myself from that angle before. Because why would you? When you're in front of the mirror, you see the front. When you're posing for pictures, you see the front. Occasionally you'll see like the side, both sides. You rarely see yourself in the back unless you're like, unless that's your intent. And I noticed, over the years, certain angles have changed because of that posterior chain work that I was neglecting before. So in that regard, your physique does change.
Yeah.
But I think it changes in a more well-rounded way that humans probably looked more similar to historically in the past, our ancestors, as they were, traversing through their environments, carrying all this heavy weight. They had these, like, bigger torsos.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on their diet, obviously, I don't know how much
Yeah.
muscle they have in their legs, but it's just interesting to me to see this transformation. It's nice that I found the kettlebell just so I could introduce myself to this new form of training. And so it's just a commentary on silver linings. You know, the pandemic was terrible for so many people, obviously. But I'm happy that I can make a positive out of it, and it's,
Yeah.
changed my life. So
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
And when you transitioned into the reels or the videos posting for Instagram, I mean,
Yeah.
it took off, man. I mean, you have what's the size, the followers that you have, the size? It's
like
over 100K, right?
Yeah, 111.
Awesome. So that took off really quickly. I mean, if you started in 2020 and you started uploading maybe like what, a couple of months later or a year later or something like this.
Yeah. So
So what happened, man? It's awesome.
so I knew that I wasn't like, all right. I'm trying to figure out where to start this. I knew that I wasn't the biggest guy physically. So back to aesthetics.
Yeah.
Not the strongest guy. I'm 5'9", 165, 170 pounds. So just physically, I can't lift the most impressive weight that you can see people lifting on there. I was like, but I'm relatively fit. I really enjoy this kettlebell. At the time, it was a hobby, so I was posting for fun. And so what that did, because I didn't have the pressure to post for an income, for a job, I had that freedom to really experiment and use it as a creative outlet. I was always that, like, artistic minded guy growing up. So I drew a lot growing up. I was into photography. I played the trombone. I was
Awesome.
in high school. So I always had these outlets, these, like, creative outlets, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And but in 2020 I didn't. For some reason, as I grew into adulthood, I sort of, like, lost that side of my life, hobby wise. And so this sort of reawoken that in me. So I used that aspect of my creativity as, like, for posting on Instagram. And so I think it resonates with people, and, like, the visuals. Instagram is a very visual platform. I mean, if people listening to this are creators, one of the unique things I've learned is just, like, the different aspects of all the different platforms. I definitely, as I mentioned, I listen to you and Mark Wildman on YouTube. YouTube, I feel, for me, is more informational, longer format. My attention span, when I sit down, I'm like, I'm going to listen to this. Most of the time, the videos I watch on YouTube are just podcasts anyways. Like, they're just, I just go there for information, Instagram, quick. I mean, at the time, it was more of, like, a dopamine hit because I just had a personal Instagram account, and I would just follow my friends and whatnot. And so, but I wanted it to be entertaining for everyone. So I like a quick burst of entertainment, but also informational, because I didn't want people to come to my page and not walk away feeling like, I didn't want them to walk away feeling like they didn't learn something, So I wanted to add value to people's lives, both, aesthetically plus information wise. And so I try to balance those two. But I'm also aware that when people are on Instagram, it's not passive, right? They're actively swiping away and figuring out. It is kind of a drug in that sense, unfortunately. So I wanted to add value, not just with dopamine, but also with knowledge. So, so I started posting, my workouts plus the details of that, so they can read through, like, oh, how exactly does this guy train? That's cool. But the aesthetics is what really, like, gets them interested in the first place.
And you have this visual, this artistry really in your video that is visible with the colors. And I always when I go through IG, I always see immediately it's a Ericdoeskettlebell IG or a reel. Yeah, because it's right, the visuals and yeah, but the visuals, right? It's always like 1960s, 1970s kind of style.
I love that era. It's like a bygone era.
See, and you wear that's the clothing, like you look like a time traveler, right?
Retro.
Retro style. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah. In addition to that, so if anyone who's listening to this is a creator, I think just one piece of advice from me is to be authentic and find your own voice. And for me, you know, I'm not putting out these long format YouTube videos like you are, at least not right now. And so my voice would, you know, really comes through with the aesthetic that I'm achieving. And really that's the fun part. But again, there is informational value that I put out there as well. And that's mostly in like the captions and the workouts. But yeah, because of COVID too, back to that point, I didn't work out inside of a gym. And most of these gyms too are also like very flashy, they're modern, they're nice. Working out in nature, I think probably also adds to the sort of retro aesthetic. It's all natural. It's, trees and grass have been there forever. And that's probably part of the environment too that you're resonating with. Most people, they put their phones in a gym and they record themselves. But you know, me,
which is also a pandemic.
That's all. Yeah, exactly.
Everybody records. And funny thing is, I don't even experience this anymore. I mean, the last time I was in a corporate gym was in 2019. Because I own my own gym, right? So I always train in it, but I always went to another corporate gym that's not right next to our gym because I wanted to, still do some machines and stuff. But after COVID hit, and the way they were sending out some letters but that's not relevant.
Your gym at the time, did you only have kettlebells in your gym, or because I know you have?
No. I had a little bit of kettlebells, and I had machines, barbells, and dumbbells.
Oh, so you transitioned to?
I transitioned to kettlebells.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you always started with bells, and that was
No. It was originally it was a YouTube video. I always knew about kettlebells, heard about them, but it was one video back when I was doing the content in German that took off, and it was a kettlebell video. And then I was like, okay, so if YouTube wants this, right? I've learned this initially. Listen to the audience. Of course, you have to put out stuff that you like, but once something hits, follow that trail. And I found, okay, hey, so people want kettlebell content. Okay, let's do it. And then I quickly realized, hey, if I want to take this to the next level, I have to talk to a master. And I've always heard about Steve Cotter. And I remember in 2016, 17, I reached out to him. I was like, hey, how much do you charge for a personal session? And he said, well, it's $3.5K. I was like, oh, I don't have that money right now, but I'll get back to you. And in 2019, I had the money. I said, hey, Steve, come on, I'll fly you over. And then he certified Angie and me, and the rest is history. But it was actually a YouTube video that I did just for content that led me down that kettlebell trail. It's crazy, man, to think about it.
So that's really interesting because as a creator, you're adapting to what the market wants. One.
Yes.
But two, you also have the natural inclination to want to learn the kettlebell too.
Yes.
Does that say something about your psychology that you're just like open to learning about any fitness tool, or was there something specific about the kettlebell that you really liked?
I'm generally open to learning about everything, especially when I open up my gym and you go into self-employment and there's no safety net, no nothing. You have to become a ferocious learner.
Yeah.
Or you're getting swallowed up in the marketplace.
So if YouTube didn't give you that feedback, right? Like if the viewers watch.
I don't know.
What do you think you're doing right now? You don't know?
I don't know. I don't know if I would. It's back to that one video. I think it was God's way. It was God's way of telling me, bruh, that's the path that you have to take. And funny thing is, now that I look back, I'm like, wow. I was always passionate about fitness, but the passion about kettlebells, it's like it's another level. It's boom. And that's when we have, conversations with clients and our sales calls. I just had a sales call before I got started with you. You said this, right? It's a great advice to be authentic, right? And I don't even have to try. I love that tool so much because first of all, it saved my business in the pandemic. It gave me a completely different perspective than that typical bodybuilding type of stuff that we all did and many of us got started with. And I think I kind of feel responsible now to carry the torch of this part of the era of physical culture where we now dive into the kettlebell, understanding it from perspectives that weren't obvious before, And I also have enough ambition to see or to know that there's a throne out there, and I want it. Because I see that Pavel is getting older, Steve is getting older, my sensei. And I think whether they like it or not, once you've reached a certain age, you have to pass the torch. And I think, I've learned this from Steve, is I love the way he describes it. His style of kettlebell training is, he says, it's like a martial art of training when you pick up a kettlebell. He's the martial artist in kettlebell.
Yeah.
And I always understood from the more analytical side that Steve is actually combining these two ideas, giveaway sport, right, the kettlebell sport idea, with, if you can even call it hard style. I've stopped calling it styles anyway because I've realized it's all about intent.
Interesting. Okay. No, I like that.
It's all about intent. I don't use the style analogy because, and like I'm saying again, 99% of people never heard of kettlebells. They don't care about styles. They only want the benefit. Right? That's I've recently started. I've purchased a marketing course from one of a very large agency from Australia. They're called King Kong, and the guy who founded this is called Sabri Subi. So I bought a marketing course, got started with it, and I immediately realized all the mistakes that I was making. It's not, first you have to point out the benefit that people can get, and then you explain the method. But when you are on YouTube and you always talk to the choir, right? You talk to the crowd that knows kettlebells, they already know the benefit. So then you always talk about the tool. And I've always was looking for this the way to harmonize these two ideas, right? The benefit and the tool. And I think I'm finally getting there to a certain extent, where I understand how to pitch it to normal people. Because normal people don't care about, they don't even know Pavel. They don't even know that there's competitions with kettle. They don't know, and even more, they don't care.
Normal people, I've told them, when they've asked me, like, how do I train or what do I do? And I say, oh, I use kettlebells. To them, I mean, that sounds as strange as if someone exclusively did dumbbells or like cables. But
yes.
And so it's more rare, I think, for people to just focus mainly with one tool. And even that concept, is kind of strange for
it is. And it's so crazy because you actually can say that this one tool touches all these bases of human qualities. A barbell doesn't do it, the dumbbell doesn't do it, the machine. Of course you can use a dumbbell for cardiovascular training, a barbell rather not, but a dumbbell, yes, but what's the first thing that gives out? Your grip. And if you rack a kettlebell, the way you in a rack position where you have it right here, you don't grab it, you attach it.
Yeah, it's like an extension of the body.
Exactly. So you are attaching weight to your skeleton, and then you are. I started calling it weighted locomotion. That's you don't do it with a dumbbell, you don't do it with a barbell, and most definitely not with a machine. Maybe if you're rocking, right, with a rucksack, right, or with a backpack, right, you're attaching weight to your frame and then you walk. Yeah. So kettlebells do a similar thing.
Right. I agree. Let's go back to the styles.
Yeah. Of course.
Because, you were talking about newbies who don't know anything necessarily about kettlebells specifically. They just want the benefit, right? But then the choir that you're preaching to that you mentioned, where they know everything, and really you're just repeating ideas that they or you're just going more into detail.
Exactly.
But there are people in the middle who have some understanding of kettlebells, who know the difference between hard style and sport.
Yeah.
And that in the past I've used as a reference for my own way of moving, which I would say is more like a hybrid style as well.
Yes.
Exactly. But what I've learned though is that, well, one, I'm happy that I started learning. I think it was a combo. You have more of like a sports style that I learned from, and then Mark Wildman was more of the hard style, and I think the combination of those two really gave me a good basis. And I'm just now putting together that it's because I was able to look at the similarities between both, and I didn't have to swing my leg or my my torso in like a specific way, my hips, to achieve the desired effect. It was really a more holistic approach between the two. And it's like whatever the Venn diagram is of sport and hard style, like focus on that. And then even then in the future, you can make up your own style and break the rules because you know what not to do. And I think it's just like avoiding the bad to achieve the good. You don't necessarily have to fit into one of these boxes. To get
most
the
definitely. Yeah. No, yeah. Hey, you're mentioning this is a concept that I always consider becoming an expert. When you are learning the tool, follow what your masters teach.
Yeah.
When you have mastered the tool, venture out on your own.
Yeah. Because how else can things evolve?
Exactly.
You can't stay static.
Yes. You learn. For example, I have over 60 conversations now on this podcast with mostly kettlebell folks.
Right. Okay.
And we're learning so many things about this tool. At the same time, I also realize that the more that I learn, the less I know.
Yeah. Dude, before I came on, sorry to interrupt, but before I came on, I was like 3 months ago when you first invited me, I felt more confident with this tool because now I'm just like, my style is changing up. I'm like, there's so much that I know I don't know, but I'm just going to keep going and figuring it out.
Yes.
Sorry.
And that's exactly the reason why I don't think it is a good idea to cement yourself in stone with any type of training philosophy or style, however you want to call it. And the most liberating concept I have received or I have heard was from Sean Mosen, and I've quoted him like thousands of times on this podcast. It was the most pivotal quote. It's not about the style, it's all about intent.
Yeah.
That kills the whole debate. Because here's the thing. Let's just say, okay, I want to do, what is your goal? You want to build, let's do some strength endurance, right? Or just endurance. Okay. Now for a person who doesn't have the technique of a double jerk down pat, right? Boom, with double kettlebells. For this person, it's an all-out effort exercise. It's strength, it's brain, it's endurance, it's blood, it's everything, right? Blood coming out of their ears because they're dying. Okay.
Yeah.
Once you've mastered the jerk, and when you pick up a belt, it becomes an endurance exercise. Even with heavier weights. That's the crazy thing about it. Because you rack the weight on your frame, on your skeleton, you can stay static without using any muscle. And as you explode the weight up, you do the same thing that a weightlifter does. It's all about power. So we could call it power endurance at the end, right? Great. So that's what you want to do. For example, I'm not the type to go for 30 minutes on a rower or water rower or on a treadmill or run. I'm not that type. So now I do, hey, let's do 2 minutes of running, 2 minutes of water rowing, 2 minutes of jerks. Or 2 minutes of in a circuit. So I have 6 minutes of cardio. For example, that's my Saturday workout. And then the next round is let's do 2 minutes on a treadmill, 2 minutes on a water rower, and then 2 minutes burpees or 2 minutes long cycle. So now I've categorized these exercises as endurance because I have mastered the long cycle and the jerk to an extent where it becomes an endurance exercise. Right. Doesn't build muscle, not at all. And look at the Russians and look at the champions. They don't have that muscle because it's all about explosiveness and endurance. And every kettlebell sport coach is going to tell you the first thing that you need to build is endurance, volume. Great. So you want to build endurance? Great. So you master these techniques and exercises? Great. Let's break it down even further. Do some swings. That's also great cardiovascular training. Yeah, but I'm dying. Yeah, because your lower back is probably not conditioned yet. Yeah, my grip. Well, maybe you need to use chalk or your grip is not conditioned, or your technique is failing. But once you master all these things, it becomes a cardiovascular exercise, period. Now, let's take the other route. You're saying, hey, Gregory, listen, man, I want to build some muscle, build some strength. Okay, let's pick up these double kettlebells and do strict presses. Do some heavy deadlifts. That's my difference between hardstyle and sport. It's either high tension or high volume. And that's why I always have to debate with these SFGs and RKCs, and they don't like me for this sometimes. And here's the thing, I don't want to step on somebody's toes. I just want to get closer to the truth. That's my only goal. I don't care about emotions. I don't care about Pavel. I don't care about nothing. It's all about the truth. So here's the thing. It doesn't make sense to use that much tension with a ballistic exercise. Doesn't make sense at all. And then I hear, yeah, but it's for explosiveness. Yeah, but listen to what Louis Simmons says and what Dr. Yuri Verkhoshansky says. He says true explosiveness is built in 1.5 seconds. So it's not explosiveness. But then, what's his name? Sven Rieger, the German, he's the SFG team leader, Strong First team leader from Germany. He said a good quote. He said, yes, you're right, it's not perfect for explosiveness, but maybe somebody who's not conditioned, maybe that's enough to build some explosiveness. I said, yes, I agree. But it's not pure explosive training. Or explosive is not even the right word. It's not power training, because power, right, is how fast are you able to move a weight.
Right.
So it's power training. So when SFG, and here's another thing, then you look at the hardstyle, the snatch test, doesn't make sense at all. Because if you go above 10, 20, 30 reps, it becomes an endurance exercise. Of course your body changes and adapts to it. So then, I'm not talking bad about these guys. That's what they sometimes misunderstand. But from an analytical perspective, it doesn't make sense. And then I always hear the same thing. They say, well, it's a test of grit, right? Are you able to push through? Okay. But still,
a mental exercise of that.
It's a mental exercise, great. But still, you are applying a sprinter's technique to a marathon. Doesn't make sense, man. But where the hardstyle makes sense is when you have to use tension techniques. Where the Russians normally use barbells for this. They say, hey, for kettlebells, it's all about its jerk, long cycle, snatch. And for the rest, for GPP or grinds or building more strength, we use the barbell. And so Pavel came up with this great idea to say, you know what? Let's use it for general fitness and for strength as well, and building muscle. And that's all cool, but the problem arises is when somebody from this camp starts claiming, I have the holy grail because it's the only true way to use a kettlebell. And that's where I'm having problems with. I'm like, hey man, use it however you want to use it, and that brings us back to this discussion about the pyramid or the expertise. If you're just getting started, listen to the ones who went before you. If you reach expert or master status, venture out on your own.
Yeah, dogma can really hold you back generally in life. You have to be open to new ways of looking at things, new ways of looking, new ways of thinking. And unfortunately, I think that when people do get these certifications, it becomes part of their identity.
Yeah.
And so, I hope that most people can see through that. Having a certification behind your name doesn't necessarily have commentary on what this tool can do. And so,
and I would even go a step further. It just teaches you in 2 days or 1 day, which is not enough, the ultimate basics of these exercises, which is great because then you understand how to apply them and use the techniques. Hello, Astrid. So yes, it teaches you these basics, which is awesome, great, but it doesn't teach you how to teach it to somebody else. So that was the major point that I was missing, and one of the reasons why I started certifying folks, or why I started building up this education idea that I want to get started. I already got it started, but I want to dig deeper in it, because the first thing that you have to learn as a coach is how to, of course you have to master the exercises, yes, but then you have to understand how to teach it, how to coach it, not cue people with giving them a cue every second so that they feel unworthy to do the exercise first of all to begin with. That's why when people say, well, the snatch is the king of the exercise, beginners have no, come on, man. Hey, it's an 8 kg. You're having a solid swing? Great. You have a great press? Awesome. Try a snatch.
Yeah.
Why not? It's not going to kill you.
At the end of the day, the most important thing is to get people interested, to tell them
Yes.
and to tell them the truth, and so hopeful and to make them comfortable so that they can progress. Because a lot of times newbies, they aren't this whole for the past 10 minutes or so we've been discussing like the nuances between the two camps or multiple camps, right?
Yes, yes.
And I agree with you. Just for the record, that like a lot of this dogma it's ridiculous, and you shouldn't necessarily put yourself in a box. But it is important for people to just become, if they do become interested in hardstyle because they like the cast iron kettlebells versus the competition bells. Good for them. They're probably going to go into that camp. I just hope that they over time, as they get interested, if they get interested in it, because like you're saying, if they get inundated with too many details about like, oh, this is like the king of the exercises, you're not doing this exactly right, you can't move on until you do this thing exactly as we say, that could kill their motivation to move forward. And so,
Or it puts them into this God mode where they roam the streets of YouTube
yeah,
and then
I mean,
tell
if they get
everybody
validated,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly, and tell everybody that this is wrong. Because
Right,
they
yeah.
have,
So
right?
I'm thinking more as just like the person who's training, not necessarily putting content out there.
Okay,
But
all right.
but from your perspective, I could see how that's very frustrating, especially on YouTube where these discussions are happening.
It used to be, but it stopped bothering me because now we have. I also have to say I think we have grown to a certain level where people recognize it to a certain extent. Let's leave it at that, and then I've also had great discussions happen.
Yeah.
So I think that the community and the folks that are attracted to the stuff that we do are just normal, regular people who are into kettlebells. They think it's an awesome tool. They want to learn about it. And they are not inundated with this dogmatic, like you mentioned, this tribalistic approach of who's right, who's wrong. So, and that's because that's my stance. That's Steve Cotter's stance, right? So I took it from him.
By the way, I wanted to ask about Steve Cotter. So what attracted you to meet him first? Because at this point in your kettlebell career, you didn't have the perspective that you do now about the nuance. So what is it about Steve Cotter's way of the IKF or IKFF?
IKFF, yeah.
What was it about that attracted you to it?
I think it was more. I've heard about Pavel, but this tough guy mentality, Russian thing. We know the secrets, you don't. We're Spetsnaz, you don't. We own the Holy Grail, you don't. This kind of repelled me. I was like, I'm not into this. I didn't buy into the marketing thing.
I was just gonna say,
Steve,
so it's a marketing thing. Okay.
Yeah, of course it's marketing, man. This is all about marketing. This has nothing to do with reality, man. It's you know what? I mean, you've been in the Marines, right? So how did you guys train?
Well, it was honestly, it was different depending on which fire team you were in. But
okay,
small group. It's like a small group of Marines. But I mean, mostly we have our physical fitness test and the combat fitness test.
Okay,
and that was we did a 3-mile run, we did pull-ups, and crunches. So that was the test.
Great. Okay, so it never happened that one day some special ops major who spent 10 years in Afghanistan went up to you guys and said, I have the perfect secret tool now to make you combat beasts, right? This never happened, right? And picked up a kettlebell, right? This doesn't happen. But it makes, and of course there's this great famous image of Pavel standing like this, and then you have this guy with a, how do you call it in English? The mask, right? Yeah, the mask, right? It's a special word in German. So you have this guy with the mask on, swinging a kettlebell, and Pavel stands like this, where you think, man, this guy is instructing the Spetsnaz, man. These guys who go out and kill people, right? So, of course, you get this. That's the kind of vibe. And I've talked to John Duquesne. It's not that I made it up. I've talked to John Duquesne, the founder of RKC. Who with Pavel, alongside Pavel, created this thing. And they said, we knew we wanted to become the authority. So we decided we are the authority from now on. Pavel was very charismatic. Pavel was the branding guy. John Duquesne was the direct response marketing guy. That's a perfect match in heaven. And you have an awesome tool that has this, right? It's that. And where do kettlebells come from? Man, it's market weights. And then they were highly popular in Europe. Then there's this guy, Dr. Krajewski, at the end of the 19th century, coming over to Europe, seeing all these crazy strongman guys using the kettlebell and other tools. So then he imports it to Russia. It becomes a solid staple in Russia, and it gets lost in the West. But it actually was part of the West too.
Yeah.
Right? So it is marketing. And that was, to get back to your question, I'm always taking these huge detours.
Octopusing. We're going to different.
Exactly. And so I think I knew who Pavel was, but I didn't like his approach. I knew who Steve was. I loved his approach. I checked out his videos. I knew I didn't have him, but I knew about his DVDs where he had like thousands of exercises with the kettlebell. And then we got connected, and he was super cool with me. He was very open, very, very gentle, very friendly, very supportive. And I was like, yeah, man, that's my sensei. That's the guy who I want to learn from.
That's good that he vibed with, that you guys vibe together.
Yeah.
It is commentary too on the market. Like there has to be all these different available options because different people have different personalities.
Yes.
And one thing I will say, even though Pavel, he did have this hyper masculine marketing perspective around the kettlebell, I'm sure that did help a lot of people get into it. But too, what I've noticed is there are a lot of women who are really into kettlebells too. And you would think that that's not the case given how people look at the kettlebell, because it is such a masculine tool, at least with the hard style,
It's interesting that you're mentioning this because John Duquesne shared with me that one of the reasons why him and Pavel split was because John wanted to include more stuff that is directed towards women.
Yeah, because why would they want to go in these like gritty masculine?
Yes, and Pavel didn't want this. Pavel said no, and that's why they split. And then he came up with Strong First.
Interesting. I didn't know the background with all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
I want to go to the bottom of the truth. That's why I talk to everybody. I just want to learn about it. I'm so fascinated, so passionate about that tool. So everybody who was connected back in the day, of course, I'm going to talk to these guys. And that's important. I'm not throwing slack at Pavel. I'm not saying. I mean, Pavel is the reason why Steve got started with kettlebells. And I always say, if you talk about kettlebells long enough, Pavel's name will seep in somehow because he was pivotal in popularizing this tool. That's why I always call it the Renaissance of Kettlebells in the 2000s, 99. I used to call it the revolution, and then I realized, hey, wait, this tool was already around, so I called it the Renaissance.
Do you know what the Churchillian Drift is? It's this concept that, over time, over long enough period of time, a lot of quotes will be attributed to Winston Churchill. And I feel like the same thing is true with Pavel kettlebells.
So Churchill said all that stuff. Yeah, I just read yesterday when I was writing some copy. I was thinking about that quote from Warren Buffett, where he says, "The chains of bad habits are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken."
Oh, interesting. Wait, can you say that part again? The change of habits?
The chains of habits, the chains of habits are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken.
And I think that's also commentary again on intention too, because you really have to set the right intention to follow. Yes.
And then I Googled it, and I landed on some kind of page where somebody said, well, it was attributed to Warren Buffett, but actually somebody else said it. But who cares, man? I mean, it's the same.
Good, regardless of who said it.
Regardless, it's the same with kettlebells, right? That some people say, well, I've heard this from Steve. I've heard this from Pavel. Some folks even say, well, I've heard this from Gregory. I've heard this from... Choose whatever name you want. It doesn't matter. It's all about paying it forward. Who cares who said it? Nobody. It's all about letting people know about these great and awesome benefits that this tool can provide, and really take away this tribalistic thinking and this dichotomy between like, oh, I have to do it this. If I do it this, I can't do it the other way. That's not true, man. You can use it however you want to use it.
I could not agree more. And I think that the fact that you're posting online on YouTube and especially talking to different people on this platform is really good. It is kind of funny because in the bodybuilding community, I don't know if you keep up with that anymore.
Oh, a little bit. Yeah.
For fun, I like to, see what the drama is about because
Of course, there's always drama.
constantly there's drama.
Yes.
And but with kettlebells, it is a more, friendly community, I feel. Maybe that's just because there are fewer people competing in it.
Probably. Yes, that's a good
Regardless,
analogy. Yep.
regardless, I do think it's good to have these debates too. I've sort of been on the outside looking in. I haven't had the pleasure of being so controversial. But hey, I'm glad you're taking the lead on that. That's good. There has to be
And the funny thing is, I don't know what it is, but many people consider it to be controversial if you are just embarking on a journey, the truth, where I don't, like I mentioned, I don't care about Pavel's status. I don't care about the master of sport status in kettlebell sport. I don't care about kettlebell sport. I just care about the tool. And the tool, my passion of wanting to go deep into the rabbit hole leads me to all kinds of places where I even talk to people who have nothing to do with kettlebells. And then when I talk to these people, for example, I had a weightlifting scientist on the podcast. Andrew Charniga was his name. And through him and through a lot of articles and reading the Russian, not literature, but the books from Dr. Yuri Verkhoshansky, and then seeing what all the strength and conditioning coaches are doing, nobody is using kettlebells in sports. Nobody.
Yeah, I know why. I mean, I can guess why. Just that it's an intimidating piece of hardware, and it's foreign, and it feels weird.
Probably. But here's
there's a learning curve at the beginning. Although, to be fair, once you get to a certain level with weightlifting and if professional, you're fine. You're going past that learning curve. So you think that the people who have surpassed learning curves with other tools and other modalities would do the same with kettlebells, but it hasn't. It's not the case with most people for some reason.
I look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
There is this. What do you think, from your perspective? What do you think is the king of lifts?
With kettlebells or just in general?
No. In general, the king of lifts.
What do you mean by king of lifts? So, like, what do you mean by king? Like the one that everyone should do, the one that has like the most benefit on like the bot. Like, what do you mean by
exactly the one exercise that probably almost every strength and conditioning coach who has a little bit of a reputation and has built some athletes and some champions uses?
I'm thinking because there's a lot of pressure on this question.
Yeah, just give it a guess.
Oh, wait, but you're asking for my.
No, not the personal. What there is the king of lifts, and I wonder what you think it is.
Okay.
Yes, it's not right or wrong. Just say, what do you think it is?
Snatch. I'll say the snatch.
The snatch. Okay, great. Why is that?
It's a full body movement. It requires a lot of power and force to get the weight up there from the ground, especially like the dead snatch, from the ground to the air.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
What is it?
Funny story about the snatch. Gregor Sobocan, he's a Slovenian master of sport, and I think he coaches the national team in volleyball of Croatia or Slovenia. I'm not 100% on this. He met Dmitry Klokov. Are you aware of this guy?
I probably visually I am, but not better than it.
Dmitry Klokov is one of the guy's a monster in the weightlifting world.
Yeah.
Massively jacked and crazy strong. He met Gregor Sobocan, or Gregor Sobocan met Dmitry Klokov, and he was looking for this great answer like, hey, as the king in weightlifting, what is the one exercise everybody should do? Do you think it's the snatch? Dmitry said, you have no business doing a snatch. This is a highly technical exercise that is only for weightlifters.
Right. Yeah.
Great. So we had the conversation going and going. Come to find out, the king of lifts is the barbell squat.
Okay, that makes sense too. Yeah.
So all sports coaches, especially the ones who know what they're doing, include some form of a squat. And it can also, from my perspective, it can also be a very heavy double front squat. Because as you know, a double kettlebells, it crunches your abdominals, it turns it turns your intestines into something different. You feel a very strange sensation in the abdominals, and it works your legs like crazy. So I would even say, hey, let's even throw a heavy double front squat in there with double kettlebells, because the weight displacement and everything is completely different, right? Similar to a front squat. But here's the thing: the king of lifts is the barbell squat. Okay, so the reason why the kettlebell is not involved in any of these sports exercises is because it doesn't add this particular benefit that we all think it does. Because if it would, everybody would use it.
Wait, which benefits specifically? You're talking about the load?
Just a general, for example, you say the swing makes you faster, right? Or people say swings make you faster. Great. Why do I read in these Russian books behind me that the only thing that they teach and that they show sprinters and runners is first of all, improve your running technique? And I didn't even notice. I talked to a biomechanist. His name is Dr. Michael Yesses.
Yeah.
And I've learned from him that football players, soccer players, runners, marathon runners, sprinters, they can all improve their running technique. And I said, don't you think it is necessary just to let them run and then they improve? He said, no. There is a specific, perfect way of running that you have to learn depending on the sport that you want to go to. And as a biomechanist, I immediately see if somebody has bad running technique. So the first thing you have to do is fix your running technique. And then you train specific movements for the legs. Very strange movements that I've seen folks show me where I'm like, what kind of movement is this? Well, it's actually
like cable stuff or what?
Yeah, really strange bands and stuff, really strange exercises. Where even one exercise, when he explained it, for example, you have this one gal, she's laying on her back, then she has power bands spread between a power rack, she has her heels on the band, and then she does this with the legs.
That helped her, huh? That helped optimize?
It helped her optimize in a certain, I can't remember it, but very strange, but it makes a lot of sense the way he explained it. Okay. And then you see all these Russian guys, and in the literature, always squats. Jump squats, barbell squats, split squats, any type of squat. It's always involved. And the reason why I'm saying this is we're so huge proponents of kettlebells, and I think it is awesome for general fitness because, like we already discussed, it touches so many bases of human qualities and physical qualities, which is awesome. But when it comes to sports performance, it's a completely different ballgame. Gregor Sobochan maybe uses some swings with these athletes. The rest is barbell stuff.
I will say in my own training, I do barbell squats. So I do incorporate barbells now that I have access to the gym, where I do have, access to a barbell. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have that, then I think the front double kettlebell squats are the way to go. Now with that, you can't get as heavy load, right, as if it's just balancing on your back, because you do have to actually
most definitely,
from falling forward.
Yeah.
So that the benefit of having the bar on the back, really beneficial. Plus the fact that there's so much variability in weight that you can add to barbells. So, I mean, I think I would agree with that then for being the king
of lifts. Yeah, and we've talked about it before that whenever you talk to so many people. I mean, it's 60 folks, right? And learning and reading. I read a lot of stuff. And I realize, I told you this before, the more you know, the less you know.
Yeah.
And with Gregor Sobochan's episode, I said the same thing. The more you know, the less you know. But we can conclude that the squat is one of the best exercises to include in athletics. So that's just a baseline where you can say, okay, if you don't know anything, just let them do some squats, and I think you're good. And I'm not saying that the kettlebell could be utilized for different purposes, but the way we make it out to be sometimes. So if you do a heavy swing with maximum tension, you're gonna run twice as fast. I don't think that's true.
I think also the simplicity.
Because if it was, just real quick, because
Yeah.
if it was, Usain Bolt's what we do in swings all the time.
Imagine him if he did, right? Just kidding. Although I would like to see him do some swings.
Yeah.
The simplicity is really attractive to me too with squats. The more now, I do think there is a point at which you can get too minimalistic. I know that there was some controversy.
Good point. Yeah.
Going back to Pavel with his commentary on Rogan like 3 years ago, when he was asked, what exercises do you do?
Dips and swings.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it just the dips? I know his swings was one of them. Was the other one dips?
I think dips and swings, or maybe some get-ups. I don't know. With swings and dips, right?
No, yeah, I think it was swings and the get-ups.
No, it
and
was dips. Dips was most definitely dips.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, because with kettlebell, it is really hard to work the chest with the kettlebell. Anyway, but to me, that is, in my opinion, too minimalistic. Like, that would bore me to death. And there's a psychological aspect of training, too, where it's like you have to keep, you have to have a good system. You can't get overly complicated, but there's like a balance, right? And squats, because they work so much and it's so technically easy relative to some other kettlebell movements. I know we're talking about the barbell, but obviously, with the front squat with the kettlebell. I think, everyone should incorporate just strict up and down.
Yes,
Squat.
and it's
don't
also
worry about the ballistics of cleaning and squatting either necessarily.
yes, and doesn't even. I mean, ballistics is another topic, of course, but with a kettlebell rack squat or goblet squat, a double front squat, or even split squats where you have the kettlebell in one hand, or you even pick it on your back if you have the mobility to do so, right? And then do some jump squats like the kettlebell sport guys sometimes do. I think it's one of the exercises that, aside from athletics, which seems to give you so much strength and power for your GPP because everybody uses it, right? It's one of the exercises with the biggest skill transfer, right? I mean, every day we sit up and down.
And people, when they get older too, you see a lot of people with frail, like skinny legs as they get older.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think a lot of people, especially since Schwarzenegger made bodybuilding so big, they saw this massive chest and these big arms, this big back and this V taper, and they don't realize a lot of strength comes from the legs and the lower back. And so that's neglected because, again, it's chasing aesthetics. Although, I don't know. How would you popularize squats more? How do you get people to really focus on on that specific movement?
Well, one person at a time.
Yeah, just say it. Just market it. All right, just keep bringing it up.
Yeah, you don't even have to bring it up. I mean, we mentioned about benefits and the method. Don't even talk about the squat. It's all about, hey man, you want to eliminate your back pain, right? You want to be able to stand up when you get older, right? You want to play with your kids. You want to do work in the garden. You want to have a strong, quick pace. We want to be able to run. You want to just everything that your legs do, right? And you don't want to feel that back pain when you sit a lot. So, well, how can I eliminate this? Well, I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Just go up and down. There you go.
Yeah.
Right? So it's and us as creators and coaches and trainers, we get sometimes I get, at least that's my experience, I get caught up in this, like you mentioned, in this thinking of how can I popularize this specific exercise and tool and market it. Forget about the tool and forget about the exercise. It's all about the benefit. You lead with the benefit first. And it took me, I don't know, it's so obvious. But in my marketing material, it took me ages to learn. Just a little side note. As a lead magnet, you know what a lead magnet is? Right? So as a lead magnet, I used to always tell everybody, hey, you want to have a free workout? Check it out. Right? Until I've realized that this is not, first of all, the proper audience that I want for our coaching. And I've realized that when I look at my conversion rates, they're not really that good. Of course, you can say, well, optimize the landing page, optimize the message, whatever have you. But here's the thing, and that's what I learned in the course. I've stopped marketing the kettlebell per se, and I started using a different type of headline. I'm saying, here's how 6 million people get in shape with this awesome kettlebell code that can help you get strong in 30 days. Sounds way more attractive to people who are not used to kettlebells, right? So that's what I'm using, and conversions go through the roof.
Okay.
So I am understanding and realizing that lead with the benefit first. You give people what they want, and then you give people what they need, right?
No, I think that's great. I just one caveat to consumers who might be listening to this is that those benefits can only be achieved with the work that you put in. And so you can provide the tool and the knowledge, but until they actually pick up the kettlebell and start using it as prescribed, you know, they're not going to see those benefits. So it's this dance between you providing that information and them actually putting in the work. If you know,
exactly.
Assuming they're online and not in person, where you can yell at them and make sure.
Yes, but even online, I am now starting to create a new program, which I'm working on for January, February, maybe January, where we are incorporating this idea where you work with us, and on a weekly basis, we have you in the group and everybody else where you show up for a training session. We did this
on Zoom or something?
On Zoom, yes. We did this earlier, a couple of months ago, but I've stopped it because it didn't work the way I wanted it to work. Now learning more about how to program and how to sell a course and how to market it, I've realized that I have to do things differently now. And then you're mentioning this crucial point. Yes, people need to do it, and us as coaches have to somehow provide accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're able to provide accountability through a great means that doesn't cost you too much time, or not even too much time, or maybe too much of your effort, where you're just saying, hey, once a week we meet and then we train, right? So then they have the option to sign up and treat their fitness as an appointment, right? Hey, I got to show up to this session. Let's do this. Then you're actually giving them a step more, because here's what I've realized as well. When you sell courses, the unfortunate truth of courses is that, and I do it as well, and we get great feedback from some people who use it, but the unfortunate reality is that only like 5% finish a course.
Yeah, I've heard lower numbers.
Or even lower, right?
From like the fitness apps, because I've spoken to some owners of these apps where, you know, people upload their programs and videos, and I was like, it's like, I don't want to say exactly which app this was, but I was like, do you mind telling me which, you know, like what the percentages of people, like the attrition rate, you know, like how many people actually finish these courses? He said it was like 1 or 2% get to like the very end. And
was he reluctant to share it?
No. I have a good relationship.
Oh,
so
great. Because
was,
I would assume that he would say, if he was, I'm not saying that there's any ulterior motives, but just thinking that if I want to sell you an app, a coaching app, and now you're saying, hey, how many people actually finish it? Well, it's somewhere between 1 and 99%.
Well, so this app specifically, the platform allows for coaches to sell their program. So it's not a coach-specific program.
Okay.
So,
yes.
you know,
yes.
I could see if it were a coach, you know, that he'd be more reluctant to share the stats.
Yeah.
But I think it's more just commentary on human psychology. But, you know, the fact that you're including a means to help them get over that hump, right? It's a dance, right? It's on both of you to figure out how to get people more involved.
And here's the
community aspect is huge. So I think
man, people join the course, but they stay for the community.
Yeah.
So I've realized this. I've realized another thing as well. When you charge more, people are invested more. The more you invest, the more you are invested.
You know what a Veblen good is? VEBLEN?
VEDLEN?
VEB. Veblen.
Veblen.
It's a let me do it right now. So I'll give you the exact definition. It's basically what you're saying right now, is that the like luxury goods that people care more about it if they pay more for it, right?
That's it, man.
And so many times
That's it.
sounds so bad. If you increase the price with certain items, like people are more willing to pay for it because there's this like perceived value.
Yes.
Really, the value is really an internal state, right? It's like I do view this as having this high value. A
Yes.
lot of times, if you don't charge that much, people are going to think that it's a crap product that you're putting out, and so.
I mean, you can still. We have products, especially with online courses. We still sell courses for $49. Then we have one course for $147. Then we have a membership for $39 per month. Then we have a yearly annual membership for what was it, $299. And I just closed a client today for $3,000. So it's a complete. It has nothing to do with it. The system is always the same, right? So the idea is we want to get you moving. And we use the kettlebell as a means and as a method because, first of all, like we mentioned, we know touches so many bases of human performance and qualities, and you can do it at home. So you can sign up for the Zoom. We have people who don't live in our area who sign up for the program because they're saying it's awesome, man. I hop on a Zoom, I do the session, I jump on the shower, I'm ready, I'm going. I don't have to go to the gym. It's only 30 minutes of work. You take care of everything. So many benefits that the kettlebell can provide, right? So it's in there. But if you do a course where it's a done for yourself, or it's a do-it-yourself solution, you can get the exact same benefits, right? Just play the video, do the follow along, and there you go. Yep. And then maybe, right, adjust a little bit of your nutrition, train once or twice a week, do this for 30 days, you get awesome results.
Yeah, and people who do want to get involved with the kettlebell, say they're not already, just know there are different types of offerings out there, right? You can get involved in a community. Say your psychology is such that you want to be on video calls, you want to be interactive, you want to see people's faces. That's an option. There's in-person training, or there's a more passive, cheaper option where it is really DIY and you rely on yourself for that.
Exactly.
It's daily or weekly motivation. So the fact, I just wanted to add too about the commentary on the internet too. The fact that all this is available now, 10 years ago, this would have been impossible. So,
yes, man. True.
So, I commend you too for adapting and figuring out different methods to attract different people into this unique tool.
Because I'm hearing two sides, right? The one side is saying stop selling courses because nobody finishes them, and
who says that? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, that's his name is Yuri El-Kaim from Healthpreneur.
Just because of the 5% rule?
Yeah, and he said it's not worth your time. You have to as a coach, it makes more sense to invest into high ticket programs, right? Where people are more invested, they pay more, and then of course with 5 clients, let's say like you have a program where people work for 6 weeks, you charge $3,000. You have 5 clients, it's $15K. Of course, there's a lot more to it. It doesn't sound that easy, but the selling process and the marketing material and there's so much to it, right? And of course, the product has to slap. If you charge $3K and your product is bad, that's another. I mean, just take the product out of the equation. It has to be awesome, great? Okay, but I'm not gonna stop selling these courses because there might be some folks out there who just have $49 for this 1 6-week kettlebell challenge, and they are in that 5 percentile who finish the course. It changes their life, and hey, I've done my job. Awesome. I want to help everybody.
Yeah, and
or at least the people who are interested in kettlebells, right? And I have my target audience. I understand my target audience. I know their problems. I know their pain points. And I know there's some folks out there over 40s. They have a family, yet they have this one kettlebell. They don't know what to do. They buy this course. Then they maybe do a couple of workouts. They don't finish the course, but hey, they stick to it. And they say, well, thanks to this course from Lebe Stark, from Gary, man, I got started, and now my kids see me train and all. Hey, man, even from our free content on YouTube, people say this. They say, man, the kettlebell, so right? Yeah, the kettlebell. My kids see me train. There's so many awesome aspects of it. I've learned so much. Hey, I've done my job. From my perspective, it's not just all about high ticket programs. I want to leave a legacy, and I love this tool, and I want to share with everybody. So there's 2 things to it, right?
Yeah, I think you're doing a great job. What do you think about the community of coaches in the kettlebell space growing as well? Because on one hand, you're introducing more people to this awesome tool.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they're probably putting out, less than ideal programming, crap. So what do you, and commentary as well that they're putting out potentially.
Yes.
What do you think about, do you think it's a net positive or a net negative?
I look at it from my perspective. When I started, I was putting out crap content.
You think so?
I was on the
I have to
content.
go back and check your original.
Yeah. Check my original stuff. The stuff with only a couple of hundred views, or a couple, maybe 100 views or
It's
something.
necessary to put out the crap though, to like.
You gotta get used to it. So here's the thing. It's a great question and a great topic. Yes, it leads to a problem if you are advocating a exercise or tool and you are not knowledgeable with it. Okay, and you do anything and you are very confident, you look good, and now everybody takes this as face value. Okay, that is a problem. But at the same time, you have to start somewhere, and hey, putting out content might make sense for your business or for your coaching game. So you put out that stuff, and then maybe a couple of years down the line, you grow, you mature, you realize, hey man, I got to talk to somebody who actually knows his or her stuff. So, right? Because if I would say, well, that's a really bad thing, then I should crucify myself first. Because when I put out content, because I thought I love Emilio Joubert, is a very cool guy. I think he is the lead editor on the Kettlebell Reddit forum.
Oh,
yeah, Emilio, a very cool guy. I'm gonna have him on the podcast again at the end of the year.
Emilio is. Oh, sorry. You with your wonderful accent. I didn't know who you were talking about. I know.
Yeah, Emilio. Yeah.
Yeah,
Emilio. Yeah, very cool guy. And we had this discussion, and it's when I put out. He lost my train of thought. Now I recaptured it. He said sometimes you're on the content mill. And then you just put out whatever you want to put out, right? Or you've scheduled something. Okay, I got to do a video. Let's do it. And I was like this in 2016. And one of those videos led to me going down that path of kettlebells. And it took off. And that's the one German video where I think I was just using, that's not something that you can do wrong. A deadlift and just a press and a squat with two hands. I mean, that's nothing that, I don't think you can do it wrong with a kettlebell if you have a solid background in fitness. So that video took off. And so I imagine if I was that guy barring myself from putting out content because I'm not the expert yet, but on the other hand, I know there's a problem. Yeah. Right? Because people put out content where you ask yourself.
Because it really does incentivize putting out a lot of content, the platforms. And so, as consumers, the consumers listening to this, just be aware that if it's out there, it's not necessarily good. But hopefully, I think people are responsible enough to realize what works and what doesn't. Especially
and even, and the more we had people on the channel who said, hey, I've reacted to some of these videos, some of these old DVDs.
Yeah, I remember. Right? Do you still put those videos out there? I always loved watching the reaction videos.
Yeah, they're still up there, but I've stopped doing them because because it was funny and the one video took off, but it was like I'm not that type of guy. Sometimes I do reactions because hey, people sending me stuff, then I'm like, oh, that's a cool thing to react to. And it always pulls a little bit more views. But I'm more like the technical guy. I just love kettlebells. I love exercise. I love training. I love workouts. That's the main focus.
They got the views.
Yeah, but it blows up the views. Of course, if I say something about Pavel, it takes up. Yeah, people get, rah, 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 you always talk about Pavel. Rah, rah. And I'm saying, bro, that's video number 1,300. And you didn't see the 1,295 where I didn't talk about Pavel, right? Yeah. But that's just part of the game. But when I reacted to these videos, people commented. They were like, hey, this guy or this gal that you're commenting on, they got me into kettlebells. And now I found you. Awesome. Right?
Yeah.
So,
I do like that you're respectful too when I saw those reactions, you're always respectful. And you always had at the beginning, you're like, listen, I'm not here to attack them as a person. I'm just here to comment on their movements. And again, that lends itself to the truth that you're seeking. And YouTube is a really great platform for that. Instagram less so. But so I think to answer my own question, I think it's a net positive, and time will filter out the bad and allow the good the cream, right? The cream will always rise up.
Exactly.
So, you know,
Exactly.
and I think with the kettlebell too. By the way, do you know what Lindy is? The Lindy
Lindy?
effect, the Lindy phenomenon? Yes. It's basically Lindy is it's named after a cafe in New York. It was
Oh,
picked up
Lindy? Linde?
Lindy. It's
Ah, yeah.
the Lindy effect,
The
which I think
Lindy
was
effect. Uh-huh.
popularized by Nicholas Nassim Taleb.
Oh, ah,
It's
yeah.
basically a concept that says
Lindy effect.
the longer something has been around, an idea, like a non-tangible thing, the longer something has been around, the more likely it will be around in the future, right? And so I think, so gold is an example of that. Gold as a what's it called? As money, right? Like the fact that gold has been around forever as a concept
Uh-huh.
of money means that it will probably be around for even longer in the future. So like there's a risk in adopting something that's so new because it hasn't been tested through time.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, that's a good
New
point. Yeah.
concept, time
Yeah.
tested things
Exactly. That's what it is, man.
that they last. The kettlebell has been around for forever, but the way in which we use it is still new.
It's novel. Yeah.
So I'm just happy to be in this moment in history
Yeah.
that, maybe too many people don't necessarily care about, but I'm happy to be a part of it,
Me
where we
too.
are figuring out what
Exactly.
works, and time will tell
Yes.
what will last and what won't.
Yes. Yes. 100% agree. And imagine the modern Renaissance, as I'd like to call it, from Pavel, is 20 years ago. That's nothing.
Yeah,
And
right.
and the first kettlebell sport competitions were held in 1968. That's also nothing. Yeah.
Dang,
And,
I
and,
didn't realize that. That sounds like a long time to me.
yeah, yeah,
But
it is, but
historically, it's like nothing. Okay.
yes, historically it's nothing. I mean, the barbell has been around like what in the end of the 17th century or 18th century. When you look at the history, right? You go down that rabbit hole. It's the halteres, where the original conception of a dumbbell was called halteres.
What
In
language?
halteres, that's Greek. So the ancient Greeks used halteres to train their bodies, and it's like it's these two stones where you clearly see it was made to be grabbed by a hand. So you see the carve, right? Boom, this way you grab it, and look at the stone locks from the Chinese, right? Where they throw out the stones. It's also to be made and they grab it like this, and it's weight. So it goes back centuries, right? So human beings understood very early that we need weight to train the body. Let's put it like this. But then, even with the kettlebell, it was a market weight, and then with the European strongman, that's not that long ago, because I think Dr. Krajewski and Ivan Lebedev was a very pivotal figure in creating these exercises, at least from the recorded evidence that we have, or recorded documentation, with clean and jerk and press. And he was called Uncle Vanya, but his real name was Ivan Lebedev. And Dr. Krajewski was the right hand of the Tsar back in 1905 or 1902 or something. And even the Germans, Theodor Siebert and the Johann Gutsmuth, and they call them the fathers of athletics. That's like 1890, 1880. So let's say 100 years. So of course it's still novel. But the kettlebell is now in its modern inception is 20 years.
Right.
Right? It's nothing, man.
I would like to just add, there is sort of an inverse relationship between how simplistic the manufacturing of a product is and the benefits that you can get from it. You see like a simple stone, it arrives in nature, zero manufacturing. But if you pick it up and wield it, it can offer so many benefits. Same with like a sandbag. Zero, like it's just a bag with some sand in it, right? And so a kettlebell is an iteration of that, more manufacturing because you have to get the shape, correct, but really it's just a ball with a handle. And it offers so many benefits. Barbell, it's just a straight bar. You put some weights on the end, same with a dumbbell, and that's, but with certain machines like a leg press or like a cable machine, it requires so much human engineering. The benefits you get from it are more, there's less benefit. The more engineering you get, the fewer benefits you get. in terms of like functional, like holistic.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think that lends itself to the idea of, because it offers so many benefits with such a minimal, beginning, like starting point, it will be around for a long time. The tool, at least. The way in which we train, I think, it has to also correlate with that idea in terms of its simplicity and its maximal benefit. And the specifics, in my opinion, are more for the people at the top who really need to optimize. But in order for something to be popular, it has to be simple enough for the people, general audience, for them to want to consume it and to be able to do it properly, because they have other stuff to worry about. They have family, they have a job, they have hobbies. They need to get the basics, and that's why the basics to me are so important, because they're accessible to a lot of people, and if they can learn them, they can do them in so many ways throughout their lives. And as you said, as long as you learn the basics, at the beginning of this conversation, you're talking about clean and jerks, right? Being, at first, it's for a lot of people, it's like a really difficult exercise. Then over time, using 224s is cardio, but really it's because they learned the basics down pat and they figured it out.
Exactly, man. Yeah, it's down to the technique. And even when you talk to kettlebell sport guys and kettlebell sport coaches, you know what they say? I was like, that's not true. I can't believe it. But the more you think about it, and when you learn about the idea of training and how to go about it in technique, they say kettlebell sport is 80% technique and 20% fitness, something like this. And I'm like, come on, man, you can't. Doing a jerk long cycle with double 32s or even double 24s, double 28 requires a crazy amount of fitness. But the pros tell you, especially Gregor Sobochan, he's a huge proponent of this idea, and even Nikolai, I forgot his last name, the originator of the pro kettlebell, he says the same thing. He says, once you understand technique, it's all about building the endurance.
Yeah, and people can only build the technique if they do it long enough. And they'll only do it long enough if it's enjoyable or simplistic enough for them to care about doing it. If something's overly complicated, they're not going to do, reps after reps for like years upon years,
That's why the kettlebell sport exercises per se are too complex to learn. And that's why I think Pavel did a great job by simplifying the idea of just doing some presses, squats, some swings. And we see this as well. I would say the same thing about the jerk that Dmitry Klokov said about the snatch. You don't have to ever learn a jerk. It's a very technical exercise to move as much weight as possible, as quick as possible for reps most of the time. If you master it, I think it's one of the coolest feelings because it's such a skill-based exercise. But you'd rather do some presses. You're better off, right? For most people.
Right. So start simple. Over time, evolve if you want and if you can. And I think that's a recipe for success for most people.
Yes. And you mentioned the basics, right? It's the basics, just like I'm learning now in marketing. They have basics too. They have KPIs, these metrics that you want to hit. They have the basic vehicles on how to master these conversions and leads and all that stuff. Once you see it from that perspective, you understand these are basics. It used to be very foreign to me because I didn't know them, right? Just like a person who has never seen somebody do a swing, or they see a swing, they're like, wow, that looks like a very crazy special exercise. Well, it's actually simple, right? It's a deadlift with momentum. Works your posterior chain, it's awesome. Great.
Sorry.
And just the same realization I had when I got into this marketing thing, where things that used to be very foreign to me now become basics because I now understand the cogs, the wheels that are running behind it. I see, now I see how these guys do it. And funny thing is, I was in a call, it was last week, where I was like, I finally understand the basics to a certain extent. And here comes this one guy talking about things I have never heard of. I'm like, wow. So I'm still at the bottom of the mountain. But the way this guy was talking, for him it was the basics, right? Because he was applying these principles that worked throughout his whole marketing system. And I love what Sabri says. And we had a lot of coaches tuning in. One thing that he always says, which I love, is he says, don't focus too much on the vehicle, like Facebook ads or Google ads, YouTube ads. They are important, but they change all the time. What you have to focus on is human psychology, on how it works, because this doesn't change. And once you understand it, you will always be able to sell. It's very powerful.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's really, I'm learning a lot from this podcast. I feel like I'm listening to it, not even conversing it. But awesome. There are parallels in every field or facet in life that I think it's so important to, as creators and clients, consumers, to have a variety of skills and interests, curiosities. Just as there are these not simplistic, but simple, basic, fundamental rules in marketing that you're talking about as you're going through this course. So similarly in fitness, you have those same fundamentals, and it occurs in all these other aspects of life. And I think that, as we get older and we see patterns, we realize, what matters, what you focus on first. And then from there, if you really want to improve and optimize, then you can start focusing on the wonky, crazier stuff. But as long as you get the system down for the basics and these rules that apply across different facets of life, then you can start exploring. So I don't know where I was going with that.
But it is true. The parallels exist. These parallels, it's whenever you see that the basics work most of the time, it's probably in any other field. Maybe in cooking, in sports, in makeup, in I don't know what, right? Or in putting out content on YouTube. I sometimes get entangled into this idea of when to post, how many times to post. Just recently, one short took off. It really took off out of nowhere. It was the same stuff that we always do. Well, I have a hunch on why it took off, but that's not relevant. So it took off. So I was like, okay.
I want to know why.
Okay.
After you go through this, tell me what you think.
Okay, I'll share it with you. So it took off, and then I was like, okay, let's put out some more reels. And it seems like the algo picked it up as well. And then all of a sudden, the algo decided to drop it. But then I also realized I'm spending way too much time on creating content on my YouTube channel instead of focusing my time on this, how Sabri calls them, these high value activities that move the needle in my business. So I started, I went back, thank God for this course. I went back and realized once a week YouTube is enough. Once a week Instagram is enough. Just to keep the social media game up, just to feed the algorithm that we still exist. And then once a week I can even think about more what I want to put out, but maybe focus my energy more on newsletters, writing copy, writing ads, working with our people, improving our coaching, improving our training methodology. Way more important than trying to put out content every day.
Yeah, and that's where the intent lesson, the intent pattern comes into play too, because you're really being, you want to put out quality over quantity.
Yes, even though I have to say, for us, quantity works very well. It's sometimes.
Are you talking about for Lebe Stark?
Yes, and for our YouTube channel, because sometimes I put in a lot of effort into one video, gets a couple of thousand views, and then just a reel that we do on the side takes off.
Yeah. So by the way, what did you think that was?
I was Angie. She was wearing a top. She had no bra on, and we didn't even focus on this. I was like, let's do the reel. And then you see her beautiful female features. You see them a little bit, and it took off like crazy. And I get all these comments. They're all thirsty. All these thirsty guys in the comments, like, oh, right? So I'm like, okay, right? So that's the reason why it took off. But then sometimes, for example, this one CrossFit video that I did on Instagram took off immediately, blew up like crazy. Where everybody was, the whole CrossFit, I felt like the whole CrossFit community was merging on my
Is
comment
this-
section.
Is this when you were talking about the CrossFit games and how their form is just like trash? with
Yes,
kettlebells?
exactly. Yes. Everybody was.
I love
Crest,
that.
the CrossFit guys were really mad, and this took off. But then on TikTok, we posted Dan John's armor building complex. Took off like crazy. The next day, we post a similar video. Doesn't take off at all.
Yeah, sometimes the algorithm likes to test content too. So.
And funny thing is, you're mentioning algorithm. You know what the YouTube guys say? They say, well, you have to replace algorithm with audience. And I'm saying, nah, man, because our audience loves kettlebells, and they love the kettlebell content that we put out. So I put out kettlebell content in a similar fashion all the time, but some stuff takes off, others doesn't, others don't.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like be authentic, put out quality stuff.
Exactly, basics,
Make sure the intent is there.
and try to help people. Try to build your following. Try to build your channel. Do it and don't care.
Yeah. And,
Right? That's basics. That's how you should operate as a creator. You have a great idea, you put it in perspective, you edit, you film, you upload it. Great thumbnail. Adios. Tschüss. Ciao.
it's good. Over time, Lindy will prove it. It'll say this is what people
I
care
love
about.
Lindy will prove it. Yeah. Exactly. And I'm wondering, man, how do you train when you put out the reels, right? Does your regular training that you do, does it mirror what you're doing on Instagram, or do you think, hey, let's do this section for IG, but my training is a little bit different?
I don't put anything out there that I don't personally do. I used to get into this trap for like a few months, where I would do like a lot of the juggling. Like I realized that I
yeah.
only did juggling so that I could record myself doing juggling. Because I wouldn't necessarily want, like, I did practice it a lot without the camera. But I realized, I was like, the only reason I'm doing that is so I can get good with the camera. And then I'm like, I can't do that. I need to, whatever I put out there, I have to be doing it because I would do it regardless of whether I'm posting it or not. And so that's how I think about it now. So everything I do
Authenticity.
post, back to authenticity. I'm only going to post it if I personally do it. And there are certain movements that I do that I don't post, though, like the inverse of that. Like there are things I do that I don't post.
For example?
Everything I do post, I do. Like a farmer's hold. It's just such a boring movement. I'm literally just standing there with two kettlebells. I'm just holding it for like 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So I'm not gonna, I have videos of me doing holds that I post on my training platform so that people can reference them. But like that plus like a couple other movements, it's just like it's too boring and too minimalist. It's literally just like a photo of me, but it's a video. I'm not actually gonna post that. But everything that I do post is what I actually do. And I'm aware of accounts where it's not like that, and I view that more as entertainment. And it's like, look at what you can do with this thing. It's unique. It looks cool. But I just made a pact with myself to not do that, to not go down that path. I was like, if I'm consuming this, I have another rule, which is only produce what you would consume. So I don't want to make anything that I would not want to watch. So,
Yeah. I love how you're saying this, that everything that you do in your own training is what you share. It's not that you jump into some hype and then, even though you fell in that trap, because I was there a little bit too with the juggling thing, when the kind of juggling craze took a little bit off, where it took forms, and I'm like, wow, this is insane. But I've realized and I've felt, and from my understanding of just basic human anatomy and training, it doesn't really serve value. It's squats.
If it's fun though, then it can serve. It can serve
Fun.
that, like
Yes.
benefit, but
Yes, to mix up your training routine, and most definitely. But let's say, like, for 99% of people who are outside our Instagram kettlebell bubble, presses, walks, squats, swings, you're good.
But
So-
and I would like to say the juggling is like what got me really into bells at first.
Oh, cool. Interesting.
Jared Cardona, crazy trainer, Colin Daring 101,
Yeah.
and a few other folks.
Yeah.
I was like, this is crazy. This is so cool. And
Yeah.
so that's what initially like got me really excited about the kettlebell. But then I veered away from that, so I did that last. That
And I think the guys that you mentioned, I both had them on a podcast, Gerard and
they're
and
awesome. I love
Daring.
them.
They're awesome. They're cool. They're very cool. I think, and they're authentic the way they do it. It's just from a pure analytical standpoint. That's maybe all the culture that I come from. If I analyze it, it's like, hey, squats, press, swing, serve you more value. Yes, it's fun. But just because it's always fun doesn't mean it's going to give you these results that you're looking for.
Those guys, by the way, they're crazy strong, super fit.
And look at what Daring does. Look at what Daring does. Pull-ups, snatches, heavy weights, burpees, deadlifts. The guy does that. And I told him this. I said, you know what I love about you, Daring? We see that you're doing the regular stuff. So he's the epitome of doing the regular stuff and then venturing out on your own. And he has the expertise, the knowledge, and the authenticity to do the stuff that he does, because it looks, when he does it, it's like, man, it's like soul. You see it, and then he adds some hip hop to it with the beats. I'm like, man, that's you.
Yeah.
Looks completely different than what the Russians do. It's also the cultural difference.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And from the Russians, it wouldn't even be sanctioned. Right. That's not juggling. Yeah.
Oh,
it's
really?
not juggling. Yeah.
Have you heard? Just out of curiosity, have you heard that commentary? From
Yes,
them?
of course. Because in juggling, you have just like in figure skating, you have forms,
Right.
and if you don't do them, it doesn't count. Right? So
It's like classical music versus jazz. Right? You're using the same
Yes.
instrument, but you're doing
yeah.
it.
Well, that's a good comparison. Yes, it is. It is.
But yeah, no. I mean, I respect the juggling community. For me, though, I have so many hours in the day, and because I'm internalizing. I'm internally just thinking about, why am I doing this? Right? Intent. And I realize that I'm not. That doesn't bring me fulfillment unless I record it. Therefore, I probably shouldn't do it. So, but yeah, those. Just want to reiterate though that I love and respect those guys. It's just not.
And they're experts at it. So they are really at the top. So what they do is.
Can I give a juggler? I want to give him a shout out.
Yeah, of course, do.
I'm surprised he doesn't have more. Sean Pierce.
Yeah.
He is. He's so skilled. And you're talking about like different styles. He's got a style of his own. It's like he moves like water. So if people are interested in juggling, look him up, Sean Pierce.
He reminds me a lot of the Flowing Dutchman with the mace.
Yeah. I just followed that guy.
Very smooth. It's when Harbert. I also have it on a podcast. It's a very cool guy.
Oh yeah.
Of the Flowing Dutchman. Yeah. The way he moves with the mace, it looks like this thing is glued to his hands. It looks like the mace is 1 kilo, and it's incredible. But again.
Yeah. Sorry. You can't tell when you're new. You can't really tell competency with some of these tools, but someone in our position where we've been doing it for a while, you can tell how much experience someone has by looking at it for like 5 seconds.
Yes.
And so when you see something impressive, or when you see someone moving so smoothly, you're just like, that is crazy good.
Looks and Harbert shared this with me. He shared, I just like the flow of it. I get into the flow. He listens to some music and then he goes into it, which is a very artistic way of expression and training that he make. Like you mentioned before, maybe I don't know if he has it. I didn't ask him, but I think it's an artistic expression of movement. And while I love it and while I love the way he does it, I purchased his course, went through it with the basics, which is really awesome. I got to plug the Flowing Dutchman here. If you're looking for a great course to learn the mace, check out his stuff. The Flowing Dutchman, I think the Flowing Academy or something like this. And I've mastered the basics, and I'm fine with them. He does a lot of stepping and turning, and I don't like that. Not that I know it requires skill to do it, but I don't move like this. I just realized I love working with the mace. I worked my way up to a 16 kilo, which is, I tried a 20 and almost broke my spine. Always tripped and fell. Yeah. And then
Given video? I haven't seen any mace videos with you.
yeah, because I'm not a master at it, right?
yeah.
So then people comment on the channel like, you got to do more mace stuff, and I'm no, because I'm not the mace guy. I'm not the mace guy. I just like it.
Yeah.
But you got to give us some ideas. No, I'm not the expert on that. Go talk to, see, for every tool you have an expert. And just because you like me doesn't mean that the stuff that I provide with a tool that I'm not very knowledgeable with, that this is good stuff that you should acquire too, or that you should learn too, just because you like me, right? But that's YouTube. And that's why sometimes I think that requires some maturity to understand, where you sometimes see people talking about all kinds of stuff, where I'm saying, man, you're the expert of everything. It's impossible. But because your crowd loves you, they take it at face value. And I think you should be mature enough to say, hey, listen, I think my expertise is right here. And while I like this tool, I'm not a pro on that side.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm a pro with moving it because I learned it, but I'm not into teaching it. And I don't know how you should go about it, right?
Ironically, this is the reverse of how you started with kettlebells, but it shows maturity.
Yes, exactly.
It shows growth though and maturity.
Good point. Exactly.
You're focused in your niche. You're part of the community too, so you can tell hey, go to this person, this specific person.
But I have to, in defense, I have to say that the video that took off was this easy video that everybody can do.
Right, yeah.
Deadlift, hinge, nothing fancy. Thank God the fancy stuff didn't take off.
Yeah.
Because I have some fancy videos where I'm like, oh my God. And I even reacted to them.
How much mace do you incorporate in your training currently?
Always for warm-up.
Yeah, so I started, literally I had my 4th day of mace training yesterday.
Cool.
And I'm just like, I don't even know what the movements are called. I'm just swinging it around, whatever the heck that over the head thing is called.
It was swing.
Swing.
Yeah.
And I love the way it feels. It like opens up the shoulders.
Yeah.
It activates the core too.
What's the weight you're using?
It was like 15 pounds, I think.
I'd say 8K
the one at my
or
gym,
6K.
they're in pounds.
Yeah.
So just 15 pounds.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, it's a great way to start. And you're a strong guy, so of course you can handle it. But the funny thing is, even if you master the mace to a certain extent with the movement, when you pick up a heavy mace, it's like, OMG. And I've texted Hobbit. I told him, I was like, man, I tried a 20 kg and almost died. And he said, bro, you got to work yourself up, man. I said, yeah, you're right.
I started with a 7-pound before doing the 15.
Okay. So you already
for people to know, I didn't just start with a 15. Dave, literally yesterday was the first time I tried the 15-pounder.
So like the 20 kg that I tried, that's a 40-pound then.
Yeah,
And I love, and then a couple of days later, he posted a video where he's using the 20 kg mace with fluidity like crazy. And I texted, I commented, I was like, bruh, man, that's 20 kg, you're a monster. And he replied, he's like, only those who know. I was like, yeah, most definitely.
They don't appreciate it. Like most people can't appreciate it. If the person, he's a fit guy, don't get me wrong, but he's not like bodybuilder-esque. So most people who have never touched a mace don't know what that entails.
Yes.
So unfortunately,
yes,
it's not
same with kettlebells, right?
With kettlebells.
Same.
Yeah. Especially with some of the comp bells too, like a 48 comp bell, it looks the same as like a 12 kg. So people aren't going to know the difference in weight. So anyway, it's all these things that you think about when you're posting and you're watching people. It's just, you're so inundated. Most people don't even think about this stuff, but I'm sure you and I were on the same track whenever.
Yes, most definitely. We're in that little bubble, so of course we're on it. I mean, it's just beautiful when you see a master at work. Doesn't matter what it is, right? When you see an expert, right? I can't remember a video that I saw. I think it was a locksmith, a lock picker. There's a YouTube channel. This guy has 3 million subscribers, and he's picking. Yeah, he picks locks. And he's called the Lockpick Lawyer, something like this. LPL, yes, Lockpick Lawyer. So there's this one video. Man, I got to tell that story. It's so awesome. And then I have a couple of questions about training, man. But there's a cool video where he gets a letter from a subscriber. And in that letter is a huge lock. And the subscriber says, "Dear Locksmith Lawyer, The locksmith that I called to open up that lock, he had to do it with a saw, right? Because he couldn't pick it. And he said, and the subscriber said, I've talked to the locksmith, and I told him probably the locksmith lawyer on YouTube, he could do it. And then the locksmith replied, that's impossible. I hate that guy. He's lying. Blah, 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 right? So the subscriber sends him that lock, and the locksmith lawyer says, okay, so now he's testing me, so I have to prove on camera if I can pick that lock. And he picks it in 30 seconds. Like, tuck, 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 boom. And he has a very calm voice. I think he doesn't have an English accent, but very eloquent the way he speaks, and it's awesome to watch. Picks it in 20 seconds, and that's when you see an expert at work. It's just awesome to see if somebody has honed their skill in the craft that they're using on a daily basis.
And the fact that he was able to make that so interesting is interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's like you're just describing what the video is, and I'm enthralled as I'm listening to you. But when you're thinking about it, it's like he literally made a video of him picking a lock, and he somehow made that interesting.
Yes.
And like with kettlebell videos too, it's like, how can I make this snatch interesting? Not just this one time, but like over the course of many videos. How can I continue to make these few movements as interesting as possible so that people will get into it and care about the kettlebell? And it's a new art form that I think really only existed, post YouTube, because prior to that, all of the media was it was hours long. It was made for entertainment, but these short bursts of like watching these experts and the fact that they can make it interesting is a unique skill set.
And it's also very addicting.
Yeah.
That's what I think
Yeah, sorry.
You've posted something about Twitter recently, right? Where you said you went on it and you got like, it really it bogged you down. You said something like you went on Twitter, and then
I've been watching Twitter for years.
Yes.
Because
That one
I've heard
post,
of, like, I don't need more. I don't need to consume more internet than I already do. And
Amen
two,
to this, man.
I don't need the drama because I know that Twitter is just like. Speaking of the internet, have you seen that meme of it's an old meme of like it's like 4 pictures. One is like Facebook, and it's like a guy with like on the beach with his family, he's smiling. And then Instagram is like, oh, he's next to this nice car. And then sure enough, Twitter is him like drunk at a party, like passed out. Like Twitter is just a cesspool.
Yes.
That I don't want to get involved in.
Yes.
But
Now I remember you said your mental health took a deep dive. That's what you said.
On X or
Yes.
Twitter?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it did, but I was expecting it too. So maybe that probably was self-reinforcing. But I asked people, I asked the followers, I was like, who should I follow on X? And like half of the responses were just like, don't go on X, like delete it now. This is terrible. But
X, yes, X,
I'm
so
using
strange.
it as a. I'm experimenting now, getting some information from there. But I, as a consumer, I'm trying to hack the algorithm and just get some healthy, like have a healthy feed, But it's not really fitness related on Twitter or X, I don't, because I consume so much fitness content on Instagram and on YouTube that, I don't need to have it inundating my life in all aspects. I'm a more fully formed person than just fitness content.
Yeah. Me too. But the funny thing is, when you dedicate yourself to a specific craft, I think you're doing yourself you're doing your audience a disservice if you spread yourself too thin. Or you're like, and then I share this, I talk about this, and then everybody's like, hey, bro, where are we? Right?
Yeah, they followed you for a reason. It's like, Eric does kettlebell, so why are you talking about politics now? Someone
Exactly.
messaged me because I'm Jewish, and they're like, hey, like October 7th, like how do you feel about like this Israeli Palestine? And I'm like, I'm not here to talk about that. Like I obviously I have opinions, but I'm not going to talk about them because what good is that going to do for bringing attention to the kettlebell, and getting people like that? It's irrelevant. But I don't know. People are interested to know certain things, and
I think that takes, how can I say this? It takes just from a, let's put it like this, from a creator's standpoint, it takes wisdom to be able to shut your mouth even though you want to say something,
yeah,
right? So it's in your fingers or maybe on your lips, but you know that the channel that you've created, you fostered a completely different audience from all walks of life, right? So while you have your opinions just like I have mine, and while you have your politics just like I have mine, you have the focus is completely different. So it maybe in a podcast form, it's just like this. If I would ask you, hey, what do you think about it? You could share it or you wouldn't, doesn't matter. But in that format, it would be, okay, now, well, the guy asked the question and he answered, right? So he replied. But it wasn't that you wanted to talk about it in the first place. So as soon as we get started, hey, we got to cover this. So, and that's with any other situation that happened online. For example, back in COVID, when this thing took off in 2020, you had the fitness branch that we're in. They were all talking about trying to sue the government of Switzerland.
Wait, oh really?
Yeah. So it's like a class action lawsuit. If you're right.
Okay.
Ciao, hasta tschüss. So they got together and they wasted all this energy. And they wanted to get me involved as well. And I said, I'm not buying this, man. First of all, try to go against the government, okay? If you really have a case that is morally right, you can have a discussion about that. But I said, my focus, first of all, is using the energy that I have to survive the pandemic. Yeah. And while I have strong opinions about how the government treated us during that period, I didn't share it online. Because I felt the same like you. I'm like, hey, that's not what I'm here for.
Yeah, I mean, same thing with the mace too. Like that's adjacent. That's kettlebell adjacent. You could put stuff out there, but because you have defined yourself and your niche so well, you're not willing to veer from that. And I think we share that same mindset. I've put a couple sandbags things, content out there, but
yeah, which is fine. Yeah, I'm totally fine.
Sandbag.
But you want to stick.
I'm not even teaching someone I'm just saying, hey, this is what it.
It's
again,
cool.
I'm showing you what I'm doing for my workouts.
Yes.
I did this workout. Enjoy.
Yes. Exactly. And we can always, because there's this one creator. He has a very strong stance about what happened in Israel-Palestine thing, and you always see on YouTube this blows up like crazy, and I'm always like, I get this question pops up in my head so many times. When you listen to these commentators, sometimes I ask myself, guys, did you really study the history of all these countries? Because on every political issue, you have folks who have such a strong stance that sometimes I think, guys, do you know all the nooks and crannies, all these crazy, because it's such, as we all know, politics is even bigger, right? There's so many factors. But sometimes I feel like people are so quick to jolt out their opinion with so much confidence. Then sometimes I'm like, wow, did you study this? Did you study this topic? Same with fitness, right? Yeah, I love barbells. I've trained with them forever. I love machines. But I'm not putting myself out there giving you the perfect barbell training system to build max strength, because that's not my forte, right? Yeah. So sometimes it's just maybe, I don't know what it is, but people should understand to focus on their niche. And while you can have an opinion, I think it's always a good thing if you're not an expert on it to say it like this. I think I got this from a book where you can say your opinion, but you always want to qualify on how knowledgeable you are about the subject. For example, I don't know what it was, but recently I've shared something where I said, hey, my opinion is X, but I also have to mention that I'm not very knowledgeable on this subject.
Yeah, nuance is not as attractive for the
yeah.
algorithm
Oh,
as
most definitely.
superlative. And
Oh,
so you
you're
do
right.
see that in fitness a lot too.
You're right.
Um, and as over time the cream of the crop rises to the top, similarly the crazy stuff, the most like outlandish shit rises to the top at the beginning. And so, but I think the internet's been around for a while. People are wising up to that, and I think but as creators, it is a mistake to put stuff out there that isn't within your niche, at least, even if you're not an expert at it. Like, and it always comes back to like this balance where
Yes,
same with
yes,
kettlebell. So there,
yes.
but it's like if you are gonna post about it, you have to ask yourself, will I want to venture into this full time? I'm not a political commentator, so I'm not going to talk about politics. It's like I could post about, other fitness stuff because maybe that will be attractive. But right now, Eric does kettlebell. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah,
Not
it's in
Eric
your
does
name.
politics. Yeah.
Yeah, and you keep it that way. I think that's a wise choice or a wise move to not get inundated and move into areas where you might have a strong opinion, but you want to keep it to yourself. And even if you share it, right? Maybe keep that in the back of your mind that you have followers from all around the world. And while I don't think you have to be like this flag in the wind that always goes into any area that the wind goes, you can have a strong stance, but still keep in mind that not everybody's going to like you for this, which is, well, that's one thing, but you can also word it differently. And that's when sometimes when I see somebody issue a statement where I think, hey, that's very thought out, involves a lot of nuance, because on certain topics there is just nuance, unless you want to go right to that route where you just want to stick out and just go balls to the walls with drama, okay? And then there's other creators where I'm like, bruh, you're overdoing this, man. It's like you're digging yourself a hole.
Yeah. Switching it to kettlebells within this topic, though.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen these like modified manufactured versions of kettlebells. I don't know any names, but if I did, I probably wouldn't want to bring them up just because I know that a lot of people have invested time and money into manufacturing these new versions of this old tool. Do you know what I'm referring to? Have you seen some of these like newer kettlebells at all?
The one with the hole inside?
That's
That
one of
looks
them.
like a headphone?
Yeah, that's one of them. Like a lot
Squat
of people.
Universities, right? That's his. Or he designed it with somebody.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah, but I also saw an idea even earlier of this headphone kettlebell.
Okay.
Yeah.
That might
I
be
saw
two
that.
different. But yeah, everyone, I still get sent that like an ad whenever someone sees it, they send it to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I mean, there's another one where it's like a disc. It's an adjustable kettlebell where they have like a disc in the middle, then you can put like smaller and smaller ones on the side.
Yeah.
And like even though that's kettlebell, it's obviously kettlebell related because they're versions of kettlebells,
Yes.
I guess. I don't want to bring unnecessary drama by talking about them rather. But then I'm like, well, it could be beneficial, if people are interested in this and they want to know why maybe I don't use those tools. That could be educational, but I'm always thinking about the entrepreneur who invested time and money into creating these things, and I don't want to just destroy a business because of my microphone and my opinions. What do you feel about that? Do you have opinions on that sort of stuff?
Well, first of all, I don't think you can destroy a business just because you say something. It's most of the time you just add. Most of the time you just add an opinion to the discussion that is already existent, maybe. Or I always say this. I love the way you look at it, but I've switched my stance completely on this. I think
Because you're ready to involve yourself in some drama if you're just
yes,
keep
yeah.
seeking the truth, right? That's the intent.
Okay, it's a couple. I think there's a couple of questions involved in that one question. So when it comes to the drama stuff, right? Here's the thing. There's this one YouTuber. His name is Herder Steine. Not Herder Steine.
German?
Yeah, German, but I forgot the name. He's a Lego channel.
Legos?
Brex, yes, with Legos.
Okay.
And Herder Steine? Yes, I'm not aware of it. Maybe I messed it up because I'm speaking English now. So he sometimes he gets letters from Lego where they tell him to stand down, or they just, I don't know, they're very critical of his stuff, and they issue a warning against his content.
But he works with Legos, like he uses.
No. He uses Legos, and I didn't even know there's other manufacturers who do Lego type of. In German, this word is called Klemmbausteine. So the bricks, they have it, right? So I thought Lego came up with this brick thing, but it's actually many manufacturers all around the world who are using these bricks, but are just the brick in itself. And they're different brands, right? I always thought it's just Lego. So to make a long story short, he could do the following. He could just say, you know what, let's not talk about this because it's legal matters and stuff. Because the only stuff that he talks about are the Lego things, right?
Yeah.
But he does talk about it. And then he once said something where I was like, yeah, that's the way how I consider my channel too. He said, sometimes the bomb explodes and I'm all here for it. And some of you guys...
I guess if your audience would want to know about it.
Yeah, sometimes it's drama. Sometimes drama. The video that he was talking about, the cease and desist letter from Lego, got like 2 million views.
Yeah.
And he said, yes, and he said, hey, maybe the bomb goes off. Everybody's here now funny. Some of you guys are going to stay for the Lego content, and some of you guys are just looking for bombs. I'm fine with both. Right? So... that's how I view it. And now we've talked about this already. I think there's a good way to go about it and a bad way to go about it. Now the guy that I mentioned, the YouTuber, he's a very cool and awesome and likable guy. And the way he talks, it's just awesome. Yeah. Especially if you know he's German, he has this German style to it, the typical culture thing. I love it. I love watching this guy. And now, for example, with the kettlebell, I thought about doing a video too, but I forgot it.
Okay.
This headphone bell.
Right.
So here's the thing: if you throw something in the marketplace, which is a pool of piranhas, right? It's shark infested waters, because it's competition at the end of the day. You are in a growing market. You want to sell your product, and everybody else wants to sell their product. So of course it's bloody waters to a certain extent. And now, if you give your opinion about it, you share it, and you say, well, from my perspective, I don't think it does more than a kettlebell. I think you should stick with a normal kettlebell, and you can talk about it because people want you to talk about it. That's your audience. Why not share it? Because if the product has validity to it, it's going to remain in the market. And if not, if there's no demand, it's going to go away.
Yep. Back to Lindy. And I guess the onus is on the creators to shed light on all this stuff.
Yes.
How else would people really know about it? Because
they see it and they think, well, that's actually a kettlebell. And then they stumble over your video where you talk about it. And I even thought about buying one from Squat University and then make a comparison. Yeah. And when I saw it for the first time, I thought, that's strange. That's the only thing that
I've never actually used it, so who knows?
Hey, exactly. Because Yanni Kokozaki, he's the first guy who brought kettlebells to Lebanon. I also had him on a podcast. Very cool guy. So he sent me the image. He's like, what kind of crap is this?
Right.
And I initially reacted. I was like, yeah, that looks stupid. But then immediately I said, but I didn't use it. So maybe there's something to it.
Yeah.
But it looks completely strange.
I think so you said Squat University designed it, but there was one iteration before that, right? I mean, the intent obviously is like, they don't want to bang the wrist, because that's like the number one complaint that people have with, like, when they're starting out with kettlebells. They don't know how to, like, time the bell correctly and move it so that they're not banging.
It's a skill question, right? It's a skill question.
They don't want to face that learning.
Yes, you have to learn it. That's it, right? When I saw it for the first time, I was like, hey, you don't have to bang your rack or whatever, your forearm. Yeah, but if you just have these headphones dangling around, completely changes the idea of a kettlebell. So the weight displacement is completely different because now it moves back and forth.
So your grip is going to work too.
And here's the thing. We talked about it before, right? You don't grab a kettlebell, you attach it to your frame.
Yeah.
So this is going out the window. And well, maybe it serves you some benefits. Maybe it serves unique benefits. I don't know. But it looks strange to my eye. And if the way I understand it from a kettlebell perspective, I think it's strange. But Squat University said something. He said, well, I never said it's a kettlebell.
It's like a new thing.
It's just a new thing. I'm like, okay, hey, fair point.
It's like a dumbbell, but the weights are lower.
Something like this, right? It looks strange. And you know, with let's say like with the expertise that you and I both have, you look at it and it's like, I don't know. But when I saw the Pro Kettlebell with the contour pockets, which Nikolai was so cool to send me one, and also he sponsored a video where I was training with one of his kettlebells, which feels really awesome. I understand the contour pockets. It's great, cool way of training, and I also like that when you turn the kettlebell around, he improved the hole. So it's a hollow core to a certain extent. It is, but the hole is large, very large. So then you can use these 2 kilogram or 1 kilogram increments. You can stack them into the kettlebell. So it's like hidden in the kettlebell. It's way better. It's more stable when you have it on the floor. Hey, that's great craftsmanship. Love it, man. Awesome. Cool. I
think in terms of like iterations and new versions of an old thing, I think he did a great job. The contours are like the main selling point of that kettlebell. What I'm actually most impressed by is the handle. There's something about, you're talking about nuances, and this is only something that you'd really feel after doing reps upon reps. The width, normally with a bunch of these other kettlebell manufacturers, they make their stuff overseas in China, and a lot of times they're just the same bells. They just stamp another logo on it. And I'm talking about hardstyle bells specifically, not even comp bells, which, I guess pro kettlebells.
Oh, but just to throw this in there, our kettlebells have been manufactured in China as well. Of course.
Yours look different. Well, we'll talk about that in a sec. But I wanted to say that the width of the handle, at least with a lot of the, I guess with the comp bells, they like expand as they meet the horn, right? Mm-hmm. When the handle meets the horn, they get kind of wider.
Yes.
But pro kettlebells, for some, it's like it's consistent. The width is consistent even at that corner, and it's a small, distinct change that I noticed when I first picked it up. I was like, "There's something about this that feels different," and I think I just appreciated it because I do have relatively small hands, and so that part, even though the width I think is the same millimeter width, just that slight change, and it's not talked about. So I wanted to just shout out that aspect of the design that I really like, because I don't really care about the contour. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really need it. I don't mind.
Yes. If you mastered it, it doesn't matter. Yes,
but I wish every kettlebell had that handle, because I love that handle a lot.
Interesting, because the handle, I don't like it that much.
You don't? Interesting.
Yeah. Funny.
We're allowed different opinions on this.
Yes. Which is fine. Because I think his handles are 32 millimeters, and ours are 35.
Okay.
So the handles
they are
thicker.
Slightly smaller too.
Yes.
So you don't like the width.
Yes. I don't like the smallers. But I noticed the shape at the horns, where it stays very compact and the same. Agree. I didn't feel a big difference there. The only difference that I felt was the handle is thinner, and I don't like it.
Okay.
I like the thicker handle.
That's totally fair.
Yes. And here's what I also felt. I felt that the Pro Kettlebell is smaller.
You're right. Yeah, the height
from the side. The height, exactly.
Are you talking about the window height? Because I think the window.
I think the window height is almost the same that I'm looking at.
I think the window height's the same, because I didn't feel any difference there.
Yes, that's the same. But the kettlebell in itself is a little bit smaller.
Right.
So the weight displacement, I felt this immediately. The weight displacement when I pressed the 24 with the Pro Kettlebell was pulling me slightly towards my body. Was like, oh, that's a little bit different up here. While with our kettlebells, which is a little bit bigger, so the weight displacement is maybe a couple of millimeters to the lateral side. I felt it overhead. It felt a little bit more comfortable because I'm used to that weight displacement now. But these are small details that I think you only feel them, just like you mentioned with the. I didn't even think about this, but you're most definitely right. These are small changes and small details that you only feel when you've done a couple of reps with the kettle, thousands of reps, let's be honest, right? And then you feel it.
And I think that for anyone who's new to kettlebells and listening to this this podcast, we should probably make some commentary on what they should buy. That's always like one of the biggest questions I get. I'm sure you get
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
I've never used yours. I'll put that out there. I typically like the conversation for me at least always starts cast iron or comp.
Yes.
And I personally like cast iron more, mostly because of the coating. I'll put that out there right now. I like
Because they're black? Because the
just
color's
color.
black, right?
No, not the color. I like the feel, the texture of a powder coat. I thought you were being sarcastic. No, it's not.
No, because we have black kettlebells, right? We have the big ones, the 64s black, and then the old kettlebells that we had, they were all black. And I really liked it, even though now...
You're talking about cast iron, not competition bells, right?
Yeah, competition kettlebells, but from a German manufacturer, and they called them competition fitness kettlebells.
Is this like the Rogue one where it has a slight contour?
No. Full black.
I have seen. Yes, I've seen foreign. We don't have those here. I've never seen a.
But here's the thing: they're not worth it if you work with them long enough. Keep your thought. Really? Keep your train of thought. They're not worth it because the mass inside starts breaking, and then you hear it. It's yeah.
So it's just the manufacturing sport. But
probably,
no, the reason I like the cast iron is for most bells. I think when you're using light bells, I personally like a competition bell just because of the size, you know. It's weird to have a cast iron bell and like the bells, like, but I don't even use those that much. Anyway, I like the handle and the feel of the powder coat that cast iron bells have. Having said that, I do appreciate the consistency of competition bells, and so. I don't think, given to your point, like an hour and a half ago when we were talking about, you know, how you don't view them as like different styles. It's just a different way of working. You know, I think you can use competition bells and cast iron bells no matter what style you're doing. It's just whatever feels best.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. Okay. The reason why I say when people ask us, hey, what kind of kettlebell should I use or buy? The reason why I say competition or just hollow core, which I believe is the best feeling, the reason why I say this is because then your learning curve will stay consistent. Because I'm assuming if you ask me, you watch a lot of my stuff, a lot of my content, you're maybe even tinkering with the thought to buy one of our programs. So when you start immersing yourself into the kettlebell and learning the tool and you learn from me, I want you to have this consistent curve of learning. And that's why I think, because I teach on competition kettlebells, I got a request from somebody in Italy to do a seminar. And the first thing that I said was, bro, you have to have competitions. Because if you want me to teach from my full potential, I have to teach on that tool. So that's why I say, I think the competition is a great way to start and it's a great kettlebell. But I also say, if you have a cast iron, that's also cool. If you have one of these crazy, these rubber bells or these corner bells, get rid of them.
Yeah.
Get yourself, right? Either a cast iron or a competition. But since I want to keep it very linear with the approach that I have and with the content that we put out, I always say step in for a competition kettlebell or opt in for a competition.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to get that consistent hand insertion and the like,
Yes. But you're fine with both at the end of the day. And even sometimes when people say, "But I have these crappy kettlebells." Even some of our clients have these ultimate crappy kettlebells. So when Angie's coaching them, they always say, "Well, but it hurts." And then Angie says, "Well, that's the reason it hurts, because your kettlebell's like this."
Right.
Unless you opt in for a better one, you have to put up with that pain.
And these bells, if they're high quality, they're gonna last longer than you will last. Like
most definitely.
They're gonna outlive us. The cheap, bells, though, they're not gonna last.
And you're mentioning a very good point where the cast iron is at a clear advantageous position. The hollow core will break earlier the competition than a cast iron. And I feel it especially with the lighter bells. The paint comes off, and with the black kettlebells that we had, those competition fitness kettlebells, the crackling inside because the material is breaking, that's really, really awkward to train with. I hate it. That's why I opted in for our own.
So with yours, I guess I'm curious about the manufacturing process. That hollow core, the void you can still create that with a single cast, right?
Oh,
So it's not or is that because Nikolai? I know he doesn't have a hollow sphere, like a hollow void in his, because his is just like it's a single mass, and then there's like a
Yep,
blank.
exactly.
So that as it gets heavier, the additional mass, it just goes
Yes,
down.
yes,
It doesn't
yes.
make the void smaller.
Yes.
I guess I'm just curious. Do you know like the details about the manufacturing? Because I don't know how I get that the paint would break down, but the insides, I guess I'm not visualing that. How would that? Is it a
Well,
separate?
the inside, I have to be more exact. With the hollow core, I don't think they break down as easily, but these filled ones, they broke down easily.
Filled one. Okay,
The filled ones, yes. And even with the hollow core, I would say that a cast iron is more durable because of its build, right? You
Right.
see that there's even these videos where they shoot kettlebells with sniper rifles and stuff, and then the
I've never
kettlebell
seen
even
those.
you got to check them out. Millions of views. Where the kettlebell lasts, right? Against a heavy sniper rifle shot, boom, and the kettlebell's like, man, I'm still standing. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
that's cast iron.
My advice, bringing it back, is just spend the extra money for a higher quality bell, because it will last you forever. The one exception, though, this is the balance thing. Do you really want to spend so much money on a light bell that you'll probably quickly outgrow?
Good
Because
point.
you have to figure out, are you still going to be able to use that in the future? And you can for certain movements, but the majority of your time will be spent with heavier bells that you won't be able to use when you're first buying kettlebells. So there's this balance of like, you should get it cheaper, if you're not going to actually use it, So
That's a good point, but we could balance the statement by saying that most people just train once a week, so they will stay with a single weight for a very long time.
it depends on
You and I were cracks, right? So we train 4 or 5 times a week. That's different, but most people they train once, and then we're good. If you have somebody who trains once year round, they're already at the top of the pyramid, right? Because most people just you know what it is with fitness.
Yeah. We're getting kind of nuanced, but I just wanted to bring that up because I know that like a lot of people have that question. So I think
But you're right, most definitely. You will outgrow your kettlebell pretty fast, especially if you work with a coach or a great program. You probably will outgrow that weight. That's why I always call these, for men, 20. I would even say 24, 28s. These are evergreen weights that I will always use the 24.
Dude, I thought I would outgrow that. And I'm like using the 24. They're like the 24 and the 28. They're both my favorite weights. But they've been my favorite weights for like over a year now. And it's like, come on, can't the 32 be my standard bell? And I'm not there yet.
Yes, the 30's a beast, man. The 32's a beast.
I obviously use the 32 and up, and if I'm trying to get reps in, if I'm doing strict presses, by set 4 or whatever, I'm doing a push press instead, and so I'm not getting that grind that I can get with the 24 and the 28. So
yes, and see, and the double 32s. I mean,
double 32s.
That's so monstrous. Of course, you have to. That's why it was. I think it was intended to be used when they use it in the sports, to put perfect technique and endurance on display, and that's why Thierry Henry. It's such a shame that some of these old school kettlebell sport guys, they're not around anymore, or they don't put out content at all. But he said they relate the Russians or the Eastern Bloc folks. They refer to the endurance that you need in order to power through a 10-minute set with double 24s or double 32s. They refer to this as hybrid endurance.
Yeah.
They don't call it strength endurance, because strength endurance is like 20 reps and then you're gone, right? But 100 reps with 64 kg, my body weight, for 10 minutes? What kind of strength is this, right?
Takes a different type of person. But
you have to be a different type of person.
Technique. But you know what, though? You know Anthony Menko? Dude, I mean, this guy lifts like 50. He just shoulder presses a 50.
Hey, I don't want to be the neighbor living below him.
The Hulk living in that. Him, Rhino strength. I don't know Rhino. I don't know. Do you know what's his real name?
I think last name is Hoots or something. Eric, maybe.
Steve.
No. Steve Coots or something. Yeah.
Coots. Yeah, I just want to give him a shout out too. Like there are some beasts out there, and granted,
Yeah.
they're bigger guys than we are. I don't know
Yeah.
how tall they are, but
Yeah.
in order, you're talking about evergreen weights. Other people have different evergreen weights because they're just bigger people.
Oh, of course, but these are
Like-
the extreme. I think that's the extreme. I'm a lightweight dude. I'm 170 centimeters. I think that's 5'7", 5'8", something. And
Okay.
I recently fell below a couple of years ago. I called it my standard weight. I'm never going below that weight. But I'm now 69.5 kg, and I feel the most awesome when I look into the mirror. I love my bottom. Somebody recently commented, bro, you the more you put out content like this, the more I think you look like Bruce Lee. So
Oh.
I identify my body type as the Bruce Lee body type.
Yeah.
All right, this guy was a complete lightweight, but a ninja, right?
Yeah.
So I feel completely comfortable. I'm like, not just because of the Bruce Lee thing, right? It's also maturing and growing older. I don't care if somebody's like 20 kg heavy. That's awesome. And I'm very fascinated by these feats of strength.
Yeah.
But if you look at it from a perspective of, let's say, like average, it's the extreme. It's just like did you hear about this guy? I think in every podcast, since I heard about it, in every podcast, I bring it up. This guy who ran the marathon in 2 hours and 5 minutes?
I didn't know. What about him?
That's I think he's
Just
an
like
effort.
that?
Yeah, I mean 2 hours and 5 minutes?
I mean, no, it's insane. I wouldn't be able to.
That's an average pace of 20 kilometers per hour.
I mean, it comes back to what we're saying about social media too. It's like the crazy stuff and the cream of the crop rises to the top.
Exactly.
Because we're attracted to anomalies.
Yes. And we're fascinated by it. Yeah.
But your skill, given your physique, your physical capabilities, not your physical, based on like your height and weight though. That's what you should be judging apples to apples too. You know, like
that's why they say pound for pound in boxing, right?
per pound. Exactly. Yes.
Yes.
You're not gonna put a heavyweight next to a featherweight. You know, like
yes, of course it's gonna.
yeah.
Of course, it's
Bruce
not gonna
Lee.
work. Yes, and I think who said this? It was Andrew Charniga. He said, "You know who's the strongest guy on earth is?" And he mentioned this South Korean weightlifter.
Okay.
And he said, "Do you know Talacha?" I don't know his name. I always forget his name. He's Georgian, and the guy clean and jerks like 200 kilos. He's a monster.
The Olympian who's like white.
Yeah, the Olympian. Yep. Yeah. And has a big belly and big guy. And man, this guy moves weights like crazy. And he said, well, he's actually the strongest dude who moves the lightest weights or something like this. He's the strongest, lightest, something like this. I said, why? He said, well, based upon relative strength, look at the South Korean guy, right? 70 kilo body weight, clean and jerking like 160 kilos. So if we put this in perspective, a 120 kilogram guy should lift even more, right? So relative strength, from a relative strength speaking.
Yeah, there's a scaling issue that I've read about too, where I think it's seen more across species than within species. You know, like where an ant can lift like a crazy amount of weight relative to its body. Like in nature, typically, smaller animals lift more weight relative to their bodies than larger animals, you know? And I think that's only true within species like within the human species. That's only true if you actually train that much, you know? But I wonder, I don't have any studies to back this up. I think people who don't train, it's pretty linear. But when you do train, there is some exponential phenomenon where, you know, even though you are much lighter, you know, relative to your weight, you probably do lift more than those heavier people. But of course, the strongman competitions are crazy because you just want to see the biggest guy with the biggest weight.
Yes.
But people don't see the nuance in the relative strength.
Yes. Yeah, that's a very good point about this comparison to the animals. Most definitely. And you're saying most normal people, I agree, unless you were born in Kazakhstan and you eat rocks for breakfast. Look at these guys. I mean, what? They live on a farm their whole life and they lift rocks and stones with what kind of they eat rocks for breakfast.
Dude, I
When
feel I was in the Marines and I feel weak to most of the Europeans
and these are specimen, right? So, and I think we talked about this in the beginning about most human beings are hunter gatherers, right?
Right.
So we are rather strength endurance beings. We have to cover a lot of distance. Of course, we have to hunt, but then we have to carry that stuff home. So it makes us strength endurance beasts. And I think even I always forget his name. It was I think he's a scientist. I don't know in what field. I think evolutionary scientist. He said the human beings are the turtles of the animal kingdom.
It's not Richard Dawkins, is it?
Oh, no, not Dawkins. Not Dawkins.
Okay.
Now, I could look him up, but who cares? So this guy said this. So we are strength endurance beings, but we have anomalies. We have specimen. Then you have this guy running 20 kilometers per hour for a marathon, which is a maximum all-out sprint for me. And then you have this other guy, Brian Shaw, who's Goliath's brother, right? A living giant.
Yeah.
So we have these extremes, but most of us who are in the middle, that's why I'm calling these evergreen mates, to bring it back to this discussion. That's why I think 24, 28, for males at least, and that's the experience that we have as well. It's 2024s, and that's where most people stop to a certain extent, when you press and clean it and snatch it and stuff. Because they don't even have to go heavier. And for the females, it's 12, 14, and 16, then it gets really heavy for them. So that's the experience that I have with the clients that we work with.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, I agree. And then from there, it's like you do those weights, more reps within this amount of time, or you can go heavier for fewer reps. And
exactly, the basics.
But,
so,
yeah.
Finally, Eric, my question, man, we've been talking for what?
Like 2 hours and 40 minutes?
Yes. I think
What's
it's
your
the
longest
longest
podcast? What's your
Yes,
longest
it is. And I
Is
love
this
it, man.
one? This is
Yes, it is. I love
Wow.
every minute of it, man. Really awesome. Really awesome. So my final question. So your training, your regular training, do you have some kind of, let's say, like most bang for your buck workout, or your workout that gives you the highest return on investment? If yes, what kind of exercises, what kind of protocol?
Yes.
We'll be interested in this.
I have a reset workout that I do every time I have to take a forced break from training and I want to get back into it. It's a 3 exercise circuit, and it's push-ups, which is body weight, not kettlebell, the double clean and thruster.
Oh,
And then dead
that's
snatch.
a tough one.
Yeah. Well, the clean and thruster is probably my favorite movement, I would say, because it incorporates so much, which is why that's a staple movement of mine for this reset workout. The rep counts and the amount of rounds differs depending on how I'm feeling or what my intent is. But those 3 movements are staples of mine: push-ups, double clean and thruster, and the dead snatch. I think your training and mine are very different in terms of like the ballistics. I really love dead movements more than that eccentric phase of that comes with like more of the ballistic stuff.
Where you really stop the bell, take away the momentum, and then go back at it, right?
Yeah, I really want to stop the bell each time just to make it as hard as possible for myself.
Yeah. And what would be the rep scheme for so a typical, just average?
It differs depending on the weight, but say I'm doing like 24s, right? So it's like a double weight. So typically I would, let's start with the rounds. If I'm doing like a 10 round workout, which is not atypical, I do like to do like typically like 6 to 10 rounds for a circuit. Sometimes less if I do multiple circuits. The way that my workouts are formatted differs depending on how much time I have, how minimalist I want it to be. The more complicated the workouts, the more specific muscle groups I work. The more minimalist they are, the more holistic exercises. So
yeah, most definitely.
You get what I'm saying. So for this specific workout, if I'm doing like 10 rounds.
Yeah.
For push-ups, I would do 30 reps a set. And then for the clean and thruster, if I'm doing the 24, probably like around 8 reps with the double clean and thruster. per round. And I want to caveat that too. Previously, when I only worked out outdoors, I would only bring one or two kettlebells with me. Now that I have access to a gym that has a lot of kettlebells, I'm able to, use different weights.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And so I typically now do like more warm-up sets with lighter weights. It just feels better, and then I go into the workout. But if I'm only keeping, to this hypothetical of just the 224s, probably 8 reps per round for the double clean and thruster, 6 to 10 reps at 8 on average. Again, nuance, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then with the dead snatch, 8 reps on each side.
So with the dead snatch, you drop the bell to the floor, you pull it backswing up, and then you drop it fully or go into the rack?
So I want to be clear with the language too. With the back, you said a backswing. So the bell is placed at my heels, right, parallel to the heels, and then I grab the bell. The only thing that swings is my opposite arm, the free arm. But the bell itself just goes up in a straight line. So from the heels up to the overhead, behind the head, and then I rack it. I do a half snatch.
Half snatch. Yeah.
And then once it's at the rack, then I bring it down to the ground, another rep.
And I get it's when you technically describe it perfectly, then it's like a dead stop half snatch, right? So the word gets so long, so it's like, bruh, it's a dead stop. Snatch.
I've had arguments with people about the term dead stop.
Okay.
Because when I say dead stop,
yeah,
and listen, everything is made up at the end of the day. Language is a made up thing. But when I say dead stop, what I'm referring to is the ballistics, but I always start with the bell in front of me, on the ground. Start and stop. So how you're starting off with a swing, say you're like a foot away and you're
Yes. Yeah, that's a typical snatch, right? So swing it, let's go. Right?
Swing it up, but then with the dead stop, every rep I put it back down on the
ground. every and here's an interesting point where I think it's fascinating. Now, first of all, I agree wholeheartedly. Dead stop where does the word deadlift come from? It's dead weight on the ground and you pick it up. So if somebody tells me, we recently did it. It was a dead stop double swing. Very heavy kettlebells, double swing, boom. And then you drop it, bam, relax. Okay. And then boom, back, right? So that's a dead stop. You want the weight to be dead on the floor.
Right. So, but I differentiate dead stop versus dead. That's what I'm saying.
Interesting.
Because when you're doing dead stop, in my mind, and what I know other people who also refer to it this way, is that it is moving back and forth, and then you stop it. But with a dead movement, it's typically just vertical motions of the bell.
That's what I want. Yeah, that's what I wanted to clarify. So, in my mind, dead stop means let's take the snatch because it's a great example, right? So doesn't matter if it's a half snatch or overhead. So you drop the bell, it goes into the backswing, and I drop it half a meter in front of me. So it's on the floor. For me, that's dead stop, right?
Dead stop. Yeah, I agree.
Exactly. And you're saying if I take away the initial momentum, the initial inertia that I'm getting, I take it away and I have to really rip it up.
Right.
That's a dead position.
So I call that just dead.
To differentiate these two. I love it. So then it's a dead snatch, right?
Dead. Yeah, that would be a technically dead half snatch.
Exactly.
I never do a dead full snatch, because what that would entail is I'm bringing
you have to
the overhead, and then from the overhead, I'm not putting it straight down on the ground.
No,
I'm going to stop it at the half position.
Yeah, you got it. So exactly, that's what I wanted to clarify.
But I do dead stop full snatches, because if I'm in the overhead, I'm comfortable bringing it down behind me and then stopping it in front of me, because the full snatch, right, up. Down between the legs.
Yeah.
That would be the full snatch, because the half, for the people listening, the half snatch means you bring it back to the rack before. I'm always going to bring it to the rack if I'm putting it directly underneath my torso for the dead snatch. But for the dead stop, I can do full or a half snatch. Mm-hmm. So just for additional clarification. Anyway.
Yes. And that's, here's the thing. I love this idea of, and just to put this even more into perspective, your podcast is the first time I'm actually asking people, how do you train?
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we have, I'm realizing when I have these conversations with people, it goes to the Sahara and back. right? We talk about God and the world, right?
Yeah.
But then, so many times I realized, man, I'm not even asking these guys how they train. So you're actually the first one where I really want to know how you train. So
But yes, but I mean, sorry, yeah, continue.
yeah, aside from that, so I love the way that you drop the bell between your legs, and you mentioned at heel level. So even a little bit behind your center of mass, right?
Yes.
So then this requires, from this position to snatch the weight up, this requires a lot of grinding movements. It's like a grind ballistic combination, right? Because it creates momentum.
There is some momentum because I'm using my free arm. I'm swinging my free arm. So there's a little bit of that.
Okay. And I like the idea. It uses the snatch, but it creates a different demand on the body.
Yeah.
Which I find fascinating. So,
And another point of clarification for people listening, I'm still using my lower body and my posterior chain to bring the bell up. So like there's a slight differentiation in the like musculature that's being used, but it feels a lot better for me and it feels better on my hands, frankly, than ballistic snatches. So so that's why I like doing dead movements a lot.
Love it. So, and with this, let's say like this 10-round workout, so this would entail 300 push-ups, 80 clean and thrusters, and 80 dead snatches per side, right?
And again, it depends, it'll change each time. I don't like prescribing very specific exercises each week. I'll lose interest if it's too scientific. This is a place it's a meditative state that I get into. I like pushing myself and I like changing things up within the parameters of maintaining simplicity.
I like that. See there's all this just brings to the topic these two different train of thoughts. I do understand 100% where you're coming from, because so often now that I've matured to the stage, when I train I feel like, no, I want to do something different. Let's try combine this, and then intra workout I am switching things up, right? Which is awesome. And it's also it's not a meditative state for me. It's more like, hey, I want to do something else. And then Kettle Phil, I had him on a podcast last time.
Oh,
yeah. He confirmed this. He's like, yeah, sometimes I go in and then I do what I want, kind of like. Unless he's preparing for a competition, then of course he has to follow a set and linear program. And I like this approach. And in the course that I'm enrolled in right now, the guy says, I want to take away decision fatigue. We decide throughout the day, we make hundreds of decisions, and especially as an entrepreneur and as a businessman, you make so many decisions, and it's like a muscle. The more you decide, the less you want to decide, especially in the evening. Then it's like, okay, I'm going to do this tomorrow. I'll leave it, blah, blah, blah. And so that's one of the reasons why I'm now starting to plan my workouts again, where I'm like, okay, the workout that I did yesterday, which was really awesome, I did, and by the way, if Joe Rogan would ask you, hey, just like I ask you, how do you train? You would be able to pump out a couple of workouts, right? You would say, this is what I do, then I do this, then I do this. And I think one of the reasons why this Pavel statement was a little bit strange is because, bro, the guy's asking you, how did you train? And you say 2 movements?
Yeah.
If you'd ask me, I can tell you, well, it depends. We have a circuit method. I have an AMSAT method. I have a Tabata method. I have an EMOM method. Which one do you want? You want the exercises? Well, it's press, squat, swing, carries. That's normal. But then I also like mixing the barbell. And the workout that I did yesterday was awesome because I was searching a little bit on the internet, and then I found a very great page where they have some kind of CrossFit workouts, and I like the idea of CrossFit workouts because one thing that I want to try is a chipper workout. Have you heard about this?
I don't think so. No, what is that?
It's a great idea. It's like you have these hundreds of reps, and you want to chip away the reps. It's like hundreds of swings. Then it's 100 clean and press, 100 snatch. So it's a huge number, and you want to chip away at the reps and go slow and take your time. So that's a chipper workout where you have exercises with a lot of reps, a lot of volume. And I like the idea, and I'm now trying to put this into a follow-along workout where people can actually follow along, right?
It's like you're subtracting instead of adding.
Basically. Yes. It's 100. Let's go.
When you set a workout, you're like, okay, I'm going to do 100 reps. In this mindset, you're saying, I'm going to chip away at 100 reps.
Exactly. I start at the bottom of the mountain. I want to get to the top, and when I'm at the top, I die.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I start at the top of the mountain.
Start at the top, yeah.
Exactly. And I like, and that's the things. I'm so open-minded. I love these ideas. And then it forces my brain to work on, hey, how could we use this chipper idea, not burn out our clients, but give them a new, fresh idea of a workout protocol and still give them something to strive for where they're like, hey, man, if you have to do 100 snatches, that's way too much, right? For regular people, most of the time. So let's stay with something a little bit more feasible.
Yeah.
But I'm getting sidetracked here. So, and I lost my train of thought. See, sometimes I get sidetracked and I forget what I wanted to say.
No, yeah. Well, I was thinking as you were saying that, you're trying to make this simple fun, entertaining, because you still want to do the basic movements. How do you do the basic movements but be interested, right? Some people, they can be interested in just doing presses for the rest of their life.
Yes, it's how you plan it. It's how you schedule it. You know what funny thing is? Our clients tell us there's always something new. When at the end of the day, it's the protocol that changes. So for example, with the circuit, I remember I wanted to share the workout that I did yesterday. But we have this circuit method where I say, hey, we have 3 exercises for 2 minutes each. And the idea is to not let the kettlebell touch the floor.
Okay.
For 6 minutes. So that's kind of like a strength endurance workout.
Yeah.
Then we have the MSAP where we have like you, hey, I have, I always like the time rounds because it works well with clients. So then I say the round is 6 minutes. We have 3 exercises for 10 reps. We do MSAP for 6 minutes. And then we combine these. That's a great combo. MSAP and circuit. So it's more like strength and muscle. Then it's like cardio and endurance. And then I also like EMOM. I really fell in love with EMOM. Very cool idea where you do the given set of exercises at the start of each minute and then rest until the next minute begins. And then you have the Tabata, which we also started incorporating. But not in the idea of Tabata where you have to kill yourself, but just we have currently it's 40 seconds of double dead stop swing. Then you rest for 20 seconds. Then you have 40 seconds of double clean. Then you rest. Then you have 40 seconds of the squat. Then you rest. And it's such a great way to train.
Yeah.
And one thing that the kettlebell gives me, which I so love, is especially on Mondays when we devised, we call them workout of the week, where almost everybody does these, especially the advanced ones. It's always the kettlebell gives you this primal feeling of training. And I never want to lose it. That's why I think I wouldn't feel comfortable now just sticking to a machine workout only, because I need to have the sweat going, the blood pumping, not just the pump, but everything. The whole system has to be engaged, right?
Yeah, I tried a typical machine workout when I was visiting family after like a year and a half of just doing bells. I was like, this is incredibly boring. This
It is. Yes.
So that is one of the benefits too of the kettlebells. They are entertaining. And just to put a bow on my training method, though, I love clarity, and so at a certain point, I was like, what exercises am I actually doing? And so I spent a day and I wrote down every exercise, and I labeled them. I was like, I do this one a lot, I do these ones very rarely, and so all in all, it's like 60 to 70 exercises or movements that I do, and like those include like certain variations, and those are with single bells, and it's not including the double.
And if you will boil it down, not the variations, if you will boil it down, where would you end up?
Well, it would be like they'd all be like variations of the basics, I would say. So like a clean, a squat, a press, a snatch, and what did I say?
Because I did the same thing like you, and I came up with 10 exercises that I do on the regular.
So mine include more variation. The 60 to 70 includes more variations.
That's why I wanted to ask. Yes, if you boil it down without the variants, then it's like, because I did this too, because I wanted to get clarity. I love this, and I realized it's deadlift, it's row, the pulling, it's the lunge, it's the squat, it's the press, it's the get up, even though I've moved away from the get up, and it's the windmill. And then we have the swing, the clean and press, and the snatch. So it's 10 basics. And of course, if you use the doubles, it switches a little bit.
But like even like the clean and press, I would call that a variation, because it's
you're right. It's two exercises, exactly.
Anyway, so like as long as you're sticking to the basics and doing variations of those, stay within those parameters. You can do a time-based workout, you can do a rep-based workout, circuit. Anything within those parameters, I'm fine with,
Awesome. Yes. And it's awesome because I want to get these ideas and then do a workout, and then I'm going to call it the Ericdoeskettlebell workout, because that's a great
All right.
idea. And I love how you incorporate push-ups, right? Because I started incorporating military burpees, not the CrossFit ones where you jump around and look like a fool, but the ones where you really go down, solid push-up, jump back up, stand up. These typical 1 pump, 2 pump, 3 pump burpees, which I really fell in love with them.
Right.
Because it's like, I don't know what it is with you, but in my voice behind me is always telling me like, man, you got to include those bench presses. You got to include those push-ups for a nice solid chest. I always get that.
Listen, I'm no better than anyone else. I think the aesthetics really help me psychologically. And I do think that where kettlebells fall short is with chest development. So
great point.
And I think push-ups and pull-ups are incredibly important.
Yeah. 100% agree,
especially
man.
because it proves to people that they have zero excuse. Like you literally just need a floor and you can do a push-up.
Exactly.
You know, with the pull-ups, it might be more, there's a slight barrier to entry.
Yes.
You need a pull-up bar.
Yes.
But if you don't have anything else, push-ups, bodyweight squats, which can go into pistol squats when you need more resistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then pull-ups.
And I always tell now that I've fallen so in love with burpees, I always tell our clients, listen, this is your perfect hotel workout.
Yeah.
A couple of 1 pump burpees, you're good. It involves the whole body.
Yeah, they should. Yeah. Although I do think that there should be more pull-up bars around the world.
Yeah.
I think
yeah, pull-ups are awesome, yes.
it should be a legal requirement to have a pull-up every mile.
I love that. I love this. And I see that's why we're very like-minded with the same. And I think if you look for the truth and you look for it honestly, you end up at the same conclusion. I mean, push-ups, I always tell our clients, there's a reason why this exercise has been around since forever.
Lindy.
Right? Exactly. The Lindy effect.
I'm just going to keep drilling this idea.
Yeah, I love this. And the pull-up, same. And I every week include push-ups and the burpee as a variation with the 1 pump or 2 pump and pull-ups. Every week they're in my schedule.
Oh, interesting. So I don't do burpees that often. I probably should, but I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know. I guess I don't think about doing them enough. I know people do those burpees with pull-ups. You know what I'm talking about? Where like they push.
And I do this too. And as a finisher, I do 25 of these, where you jump down, boom, back, 1, and then back down, and I love that feeling.
Wait,
and also,
you do 1 set of 25 pull-up burpees?
Yes.
It's a lot of pull-ups.
Down, boom, 1, and then down, boom, and it's easy. It's easy. It's easy for me now. But here's what I love about this. It entails everything. And now that I've done so many burpees, I wanted to do a reel about it, because you can actually, when you look at the 1 pump burpee, or just a plain burpee and this one guy said it perfectly. He said, a burpee is fun when there's control involved, and not the jumping around and clowning around and falling down on the floor and breaking the nose. That's not control, right? Yeah. So control is all about doing it with good form. So I've realized when you drop down to the burpee, you go down into the bottom of the push-up. You have 2 variations. You can, I love this explosive movement where you push your whole body off the floor and then jump immediately into the bottom of the squat. So your hands are away and you land in the bottom of a squat. So that's kind of like an explosive push-up where you push your whole body off the floor.
Yeah, it's like you have to reach a certain strength in order to do that.
Of course. That's a given. But the cool thing about it, this is my focus in that regard is then more on the legs, because I jump into the bottom of the squat really, and I have the mobility to go really deep, and then I stand up. But then yesterday I focused on I would even call it a planche burpee, where the planche is this crazy movement from the calisthenics guys, right? Where they have their hands on the floor. Then they lift their whole body off the floor, and then it looks. Right? Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. Talking about relative strength.
Yes, exactly. And calisthenics guys, these are crazy strong guys. Yeah, so you jump down. So you go down on your hands, jump back in the feet, bring your hands a little bit behind your chest, go down as far as you can, and then you push your whole body off the floor and then stand up. I've realized if you have the good kinesthetic literacy, you can dial the exercise more towards your legs or more towards your upper body. And if you combine it with kettlebells, it's a match made in heaven, man. And that's the workout that I did yesterday, just to reiterate. I love it. I have 15 EMOM rounds, and I have a whole gym at my own disposal, so I can go nuts with it. But here's the thing. I do 3 heavy bench presses. So the round starts, it's 3 reps, 1, 2, 3. Rack it. Immediately go to the pull-up bar, do 6.
Yeah.
And then I rest. And in the next round, it's the even round then. So in odd rounds, I'll do the barbell and the pull-up. And in even rounds, I do a heavy squat, 3 reps. And then either lunges or body weight squat, 6 reps. And they call it, I think this guy from Men's Health called it the contrast method, which I really like. It's like, first you give your body something really heavy, and then you give your body something a little bit easier. So first it's heavy weights, and then it's kind of like body weight.
Confusing your body, sort of.
It's really cool. So that's the first 15 minutes. And then the second 15 minutes, because I'm so hooked on kettlebells and I'm hooked on the primal way of training, I do 4 heavy cleans, boom, 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 and 6 burpees for 15 EMOMs.
Beautiful.
And
it's like
it
feels like a playground after a while, you know?
Yes.
Some people, when they're listening to you say this, like, wow, that sounds like torture. But for you and me, we're just like, it sounds fun. I want to try it out.
Exactly.
You know?
It's exactly. And I don't want to sound arrogant, but the more you get into it, it's just all about experience and putting in the reps. And then you will be able to do these workouts, looking forward to it with a lot of fun. And man, if I use double 28s, it's going to kill me. So I use my working weights, which is double 20s or double 24. And on the bench, I have maybe 75, maybe 80 kilo max. So I don't, and on the squat, maybe 90 kilo max. I don't go heavy with the weights, right? Because I don't want to crush myself. The idea is to have everything, a little bit of strength, a little bit of body weight.
Yeah.
And man, I love it.
Good stuff. Dude, I hate to do this. I really have to pee.
Me too.
I've been drinking like I have this whole thing. I've been refilling my cup. Here, let me show you this.
Yeah.
Like even my water bottle's a kettlebell. I've been
awesome.
I've been filling up this cup with water this whole time. So I'm
full
of liquid.
Me too. Hey, let's call it a day, man. It was it was really, really awesome talking to you, Eric, and nice getting to know you. It's the longest podcast ever, and yeah, I fully enjoyed every second of it, man.
Yeah, me too. I appreciate you having me on. This was a learning experience. It was the first time I felt like I was both listening and interacting with the podcast, so it's been great.
Awesome, man. Likewise, awesome.
We help busy over 40s get in shape in 30 days with only 30 minutes of kettlebell training per week. Grab your free ebook to find out how we do this. Type yes in the comments or check the link in our bio or description.